What is up? It is the RotoGrinders Pick 6 Show, Week 9. Myself, Dean Shavelson, Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis, the worksheets, and of course there is John Daigle. John Daigle from Establish the Run. At least I'm told that's John Daigle. It says John Daigle under his name. If you're watching us on the YouTube, looks a little bit different this week. What's up, John? You want to explain? The people probably know you've been on various platforms, so just in case they don't know, what's up with the new look?
I think I've shocked people across various platforms when I show up and then you hear the cartoon accent coming out and yet my beard is not there, all for Halloween. No half measures, as you said before the show. I went as Ken, no Barbie, just Ken with the wig and pink bandana and tie-dye hoodie. And my costume then required me to shave. So I decided to go all in, and it'll be about 3 weeks now probably until the beard is back.
You know, I remember when Dale came and visited me once with his beard shaved. And my daughter didn't recognize him and didn't believe it was him. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah. I do look younger, for sure. I look completely different, but we're still here.
It is like it shouldn't be a world of a difference, but it is a world of difference. I don't really know what
big difference.
It's I'm still getting used to it, but
the chat notes, yes, the most common guess was Lex Luthor or Mr. Clean, which are, when you're the bald, clean shaven guy, that's the lowest hanging fruit.
There you go. Is Mr. Clean still a thing? I don't know. He was big like in the 90s. I don't know if he's still doing his thing or not.
I think they still make products with Mr. Clean. I believe that's true. The brawny guy is still around. I think they all exist.
I was brawny
those two are hanging out.
I was brawny for Halloween with the beard last year. We changed it up.
Oh, well, there you go. Do you have pictures of that one at least? Because you did not have any pictures of you as Ken. We were disappointed to learn that.
I actually don't think I have any photos of that one either. Dean, I'm not the guy who stops and takes photos. I'm the one who lives in the present. So it takes a friend to pull me aside to take the photo. Otherwise, I will just enjoy the moment.
I do like that mentality. But yeah, somebody probably snapped a picture of you. Rich, are you? Did you do the Halloween thing? You got kids? Do they care?
Not your household care? I haven't. I haven't done the adult Halloween in a while, but I'll go trick or treating tomorrow. No costume, unfortunately. I would though. I'd be willing.
There you go. All right, chat. What's up? Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. You know it. But the Pick 6 Show. It's week 9. You know this is the best the NFL DFS / movie podcast that I'm aware of. I don't know if any other exist. We'll be talking about Blade later on in the show. I actually won our contest this week, and I have a couple movies that I'm thinking about, but I'm willing to entertain. I'm willing to entertain some suggestions from chat. That's a dangerous thought. I have a couple in mind. And
someone's going to drop the original Three Musketeers. Where's that person that last year came in here and tried to get us to watch the OG of Three Musketeers every show?
Like the 70s, and not the Charlie Sheen one, the one that nobody ever saw. But we'll be talking later on in the show about Blade. Of course, if you guys, you know the deal. We focus on 3 games on the main slate for DK on FanDuel. Of course, FanDuel does include the Sunday night game, one extra game there in FanDuel. And then we run it back and give our favorite plays position by position amongst the 3 games we've not yet discussed. I'm excited, by the way, Daigle. We usually kind of go, you pick these for us, put peek behind the curtain. We have a low total, but I kind of like this game too, and I'm excited to talk about that. We'll put that one on layaway, put it on deck for a second. We do have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys at Atlanta. 52 total. Atlanta just a 2.5 point favorite. Dowdle should be back. It was just an illness. He didn't play Sunday night. He should be good to go for this game. And biggest total on the board, Daigle. I'm a little surprised. Maybe I thought Atlanta would be a bigger favorite. I know Dallas is like a national team. They're basically saying they're the same. I think Atlanta's a little better. Am I wrong to say Atlanta's a little better than Dallas?
This is similar to the line on Sunday Night Football. The 49ers were only favored by 5.5. And yes, they covered by 6, but a lot of it's the makeup the Cowboys keep putting on where they get down by multiple scores. And in the fourth quarter, they put together a garbage time blowout. Also, when picking this game, the total was too good not to talk about it. I still question how the Cowboys are going to carry their weight because no one's really showing up to help out this offense. I'll get to that in a second. But we lost Jordan Love. So I think the Lions-Packers game, while it's still going to be fun on the field, we saw Matt LaFleur like scheme Malik Willis into 2 wins. Play calling was incredible in those contests. That game's still going to be fun, but for fantasy, we probably lose a lot of the Packers options we would otherwise play. And there are enough moving pieces in the Bengals-Raiders game where also probably goes over its total, but T. Higgins makes a big difference for a lot of those guys. So I think I'd rather just hold it off and talk about positional plays there instead. So let's go ahead and take on the 52.5 point total. And like you said, Dean, I'm a little concerned because I don't know how the Cowboys carried their weight in this game. It's the same offense we've seen. They had 14 days off against the Niners, and even on their opening drive, they reached a 3rd and 5 situation, and their response, again, with extra time off, was a fullback dive to Hunter Lipke, whose career-long run was 6 yards. I don't know what they were hoping for. Not only that, but we saw them promote Dalvin Cook for 6 carries and 12 yards, a long of 4 yards. They will most likely get Rico Dowdle back in this game, but I think they're teetering closer to the Raiders just as a team who can't run the ball at all, regardless of what they try to do. And so I hope they lean into the pass more. But then again, if they start leaning to the pass, like we're all going to love CeeDee Lamb, 14, 17 targets the last 2 weeks. But beyond CeeDee Lamb, that's the thing. Where else do you even go? We tried the Jalen Tolbert after the Lions contest, did score the game-winning touchdown against the Steelers that evening, but since then, just absolutely nothing. It's still Jake Ferguson, but even he's not providing a ceiling weekly, so it's rough. My fear for this game, even though it is the high total, is that, yes, again, the Cowboys are just outright bad, and then it's going to be a Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier game. And I say Tyler Algier because now we've seen in these 2 scores leads the last few weeks for the Falcons, that's when Tyler Algier is used majority of the time. A couple weeks ago against the Panthers, he had 18 touches, and then last week 12 touches, because those are the games Atlanta had a 2-score lead in. So I guess I'm really just concerned here that it's more of a Bijan Robinson Algier game. Cowboys allowing, like the Panthers, a league high 154.5 rushing yards per game, and that's the big issue.
Yeah, jump in here, Reebs. I know you tweeted about the Cowboys and their ineptitude on the ground. I'm sure you have the stats right there in front of you, but feel free to talk about that. And yeah, is it just Lamb and nobody else on the Dallas side?
Yeah, but the Cowboys, they're the only team without a running back run of 20 or more yards, also dead last in runs of 10 or more yards from their running backs. It's been as bad as we all thought it was going to be coming into this year. Dowdle has had moments as a pass catcher, which could be useful here, but who's putting Rico Dowdle into like a DFS lineup, right? Yeah. You might play him as like your RB2 or flex in like a season-long league, but like what kind of ceiling are like we hoping for, like from a DFS perspective? I think the clear-cut mini stack here obviously is Lamb plus Bijan Robinson. I don't think I'll get there to Dak, but I think you can make a case for Dak in this game a little bit, especially from like a volume-based perspective, just because when you look at Dak's past 3 weeks, they've been as bad as you could have for any type of quarterback, right? Like Steelers, Lions, 49ers in a row. At least there's like potential shootout environment here. The Falcons are 29th in pressure rate. They're dead last in the NFL in sack rate. And when they don't pressure the quarterback, like they've actually been like a pretty favorable pass defense. They've had the league's highest, completion rate and 5% touchdown rate, just 22nd in the league. They've had a QB1 scoring week in 3 of their past 4 games, multiple touchdowns in 4 straight games. So maybe there's a path like a couple weeks ago, like we took with Geno Smith for Dak Prescott, but it remains to be seen. There are so many good plays on this particular slate. Again, it's no international game again. We only have 2 teams on bye. It's another pretty jammed up slate. So I don't know if I can get there on Dak. I'm really just kind of looking at Bijan plus Lamb. That's really, it's as clean as it gets.
It's just kind of a mini, right? Bijan's your favorite play on the Atlanta side. Feel free to talk about that, expand as far as the other Falcons. It was national tight end. You guys heard this, right? You were aware?
No, didn't hear about it at all.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, every single year they celebrate. So Kyle Pitts, of course, trolling us. 2 touchdowns. And I thought, like, oh, man, if you don't have Kyle Pitts, like, we're an hour into the slate, you're dead. And it's like, well, wait a second.
It didn't matter what score. Or finally, usually it doesn't matter this season what tight end you picked because they all were bad. And this week it didn't matter because they all scored.
Yeah. So it's the one week I decided to go head on with Jalen McMillan over Cade Otton. And boy, that did not end well.
Every chalk tight end, K. Dotton went nuts on DK. It didn't matter if you played Njoku or Kincaid on FanDuel. They both got in the box. It was every guy. Tucker Kraft sucked out his touchdown on only 3 targets. If you wanted to pay for McBride, he went nuts. Yeah, it was everyone got there, man. I will say, I mean, there's for Pitts himself, it still is a little bit of a red herring. It's nice to see him have a month straight of usable games. And the Falcons, one of the things I was on a show with Josh Norris this summer, and we talked about just how Kyle Pitts, the type of player he was going to fit into the scheme, because the scheme hadn't had a player like Kyle Pitts really in it. It's a scheme that wants to play like an inline tight end, and Pitts has played more inline this season than he has, to his career at this point. But they're running him on a lot of outs, a lot of outbreaking stuff near the flats. And then we've seen the last 3 weeks, he started to get more vertical routes, more downfield shots. We were always looking for kind of that marriage of how Arthur Smith used him and how a regular tight end would be used. And we're starting to get that, but you still look at the targets and they still really aren't there. I mean, he has 1 game with a 20% target share. Drake London has 7. Darnell Mooney has 5. Rager McLeod has 2. So we still aren't getting the full run out. We're just happy to be here with Kyle Pitts, right? We're just happy he's doing something, with the meme with you're poking the stick, he's doing something at least. We're kind of okay with that at this point, because we thought a month into the season, it was just oh, Jesus, here we go again. He's dead again. And so at least we're getting a little bit of a run out here, but I would be hesitant to chase the box scores with him.
It's only a 2-game sample, so that's why I'm not diving into it entirely, but we are seeing maybe a signal for Pitts, though, kind of like what's happening with Jonnu Smith and Jalen Waddle, where the target share is getting a little more spread out. It is back-to-back games now, the last 2 weeks, where Kyle Pitts has had his 2 highest target shares, and they've taken away directly from Drake London. So maybe it's just a situation where even if I don't believe Pitts is going to spike in this game, I at least limit it and go either London or Pitts, thinking they can't get there together here.
Yeah, and London is tricky from a DFS perspective, because if you look at the box scores, he looks very Michael Pittman-ish. He's got 1 game over 74 yards. He doesn't get a lot of downfield targets. He's just getting a lot of clean targets, playing that power slot role. Dallas has been vulnerable in the slot receivers this year. We'll see, with the return of Deron Bland, if that shakes up a little bit of kind of what they do as a secondary. But every time I look at London, because there's a couple weeks where he was underpriced and we played him, but he hasn't really, outside of that 1 Bucs game where he literally had 13 targets, he hasn't really popped for real spike weeks. He's just been a guy that's just regularly gotten you a high floor.
If I'm hearing you guys, it doesn't sound like we're as enthused as we typically would be with a 52 total.
This game is going under.
Pieces. Okay, that's what I'm hearing. Is it going to be 45 to 7, 45 to 6, Dallas? What's the final score if it's going under, Rich?
No, I think it's going to be something 23 to 20 or something like that. In that range, low 20s. I definitely think if you put some arm to make a bet on this, I would lean under, though. I think Atlanta's going to be able to run the football in this game. We'll see, because we always talk about, but Micah Parsons could be coming back too this week. And I mean, this Dallas pass defense has been so kind of, pressure sensitive. When they haven't pressured the opposing quarterback, they're allowing 9.2 yards per pass attempt. That's the highest in the league. When they do get pressure on the quarterback, it's 5.8 yards per pass attempt. So getting Micah Parsons is huge. And especially because Kirk Cousins has been one of the most pressure sensitive quarterbacks. He can't move. He is 6th in the NFL in quarterback rating, kept clean. He's 18th when pressured. He's thrown 6 interceptions when pressured, just 1 from a clean pocket. So if Micah Parsons comes back, that's another avenue to kind of cause some disruption. But no matter whether Parsons has been on the field or not, this Dallas defense has struggled to stop the run. And Bijan Robinson's looked absolutely awesome the past 3 weeks. And I mean, he's been snapping dudes off. So he looks hot. We in the red zone role that Tyler Algier was kind of inching his way in, we haven't seen the past 2 weeks. He's outsnapped Tyler Algier 10-1 in the red zone the past 2 games, out-touched him 7-1 in that area. So it looks like it's back to kind of being Bijan Robinson's backfield. But we thought that with Breece Hall too. And then last week we saw Braylon Allen just come roaring back again out of nowhere.
Bijan 7-4 on DK. Yeah, he's had some good games, but no slate breaking games. Maybe this is the one this week. I would note the Blitz, Cardi is the Blitz, does have this game projected for the most plays. That's one positive. Both these teams playing fast. Anything else here, Daigle, as far as Dallas and Atlanta, or shall we move on?
I think it's a situation where the Cowboys will never be treated as the team they actually are in the market, and that probably explains the total and the line.
Yeah, people just always want the Cowboys to be better, and I guess they're just not that good, I suppose.
They're not good.
Game number 2, the Chargers at Cleveland. Jameis coming off just an incredible game, just spectacular stuff. I got to go to Rich in this one, I suppose, because boots in the ground. Are the people excited now about Jameis' season?
I don't go outside though, Dean. So remember, outside,
you probably hear some noises. Like what's that? Like you don't think, oh, what's that noise going on out there? People are excited for sure. This is the 43 total. 43. We're not very excited theoretically about 43 totals, but here we are. And the Chargers, I don't know if we've talked to the Chargers all season. Maybe once. I suppose it's happened. But yeah, Rich, open it up as far as the Chargers and the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see what we get here because, and maybe Jameis just fits into this mold, but there's like this perception that the Chargers have like an elite defense. And then you kind of look at like who they've played so far, and you're just like, oh, like this all makes sense right now. Because from a pieces standpoint, like they don't really have like a great on paper defense. And then you just kind of go on the list and you're like, oh, all right, they played Gardner Minshew, then Bryce Young, then Justin Fields, this version of Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, and then Spencer Rattler. Like,
wow.
So like who is going to put points up on these guys, right? So maybe now we have, I was actually kind of pushing back a little bit into the week. Like, man, I'm not expecting a Flacco outcome here. I was expecting something better because the bar was literally underground with Deshaun Watson, like subterranean. But I was like, I'm not really expecting like a Flacco type run out. Like Winston's been pretty bad anytime we've seen him in the past 3 months. And he did lead the NFL in turnover worthy throws. It's just none of the Ravens caught him. Yeah. But this offense still just did a lot more things from a functional standpoint to give us some hope that like they can actually generate some points in the remainder of the season. I mean, they played more under center without Deshaun Watson with Jameis and Winston last week, 38% of the snaps as opposed to 25% with Deshaun Watson. And Winston was really good under center in the game. He was 8 of 11 in that game. Watson was only averaged 5.5 yards under center this season. Winston got the ball out of his hands. He was 4th in the league in time to throw last week. 56% of his throws were within 2.5 seconds. That was 7th in the league. So, I mean, that gives us kind of a little bit of run out here of just some hope. Like there could be more points scored here. And that also coincides with this turn that we've seen the Chargers have. The Chargers can't run the football. Like there was those opening 2 games where J.K. Dobbins broke off a couple long runs, and they've just been a disaster running the football. And even Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh have kind of gotten religion on this. And we've seen now they have been 2%, 4%, 5% pass rate over expectation their past 3 games. On first down plays, they now are 2% over expectations. They were 11% below expectations on first downs before. They just can't run the football. So we could get a little bit more of a passing script here. I would lean actually the opposite of this game. I would lean, say, if you were to twist my arm, I would bet this game goes over.
I agree. Yes. And that's
elaborate on that, Daigle.
That's the angle I'm coming from it too. I'm really excited about the Justin Herbert side. That's why I wanted to talk about this game, just because of the makeup the Chargers have had now. And maybe it is the fact that they can't run the ball. Maybe it's because Justin Herbert has looked so damn good. And that could be being cleared, the 14 days rest after the bye to get over that low ankle sprain. Even Jim Harbaugh, every post-game presser now, the first person he talks about is Justin Herbert. Like, can't wait to tell everyone how good Justin Herbert looks. And he has been amazing. But in that time now, since they're buying 3 starts, 35 attempts per week. And in this one, Denzel Ward last week against the Ravens suffered the 6th concussion of his career, not expecting him to go. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, neck injury, stretched it off because he went head-to-head with Derrick Henry in the second level of the field. He's not going to play. And in 94 plays with Ward off the field this year, the Browns defense has allowed 8.8 yards per attempt. So I think the makeup, the run out is pretty good for Justin Herbert in the passing game, considering that now we have this heightened floor from Jameis Winston, regardless of if it's going to be the train wreck Jameis Winston or not.
Yeah, I remember when Harbaugh went to the Chargers, and I think Herbert is spectacular. I'm like, oh man, this is really going to set him back, and it's going to kill his development. And yeah, it seems like they're starting to realize, hey, we have actually legitimately like a really good quarterback. Maybe we should let him chuck a little bit. The breakout game for the rookie McConkey, 2 touchdowns last week, and of course the breakout game for Tillman. So it's also really easy to stack, right, Daigle? Tillman is still pretty cheap at 4.3. How real was that? You certainly can't expect a repeat of performance, obviously. Going 7 for 100 and a couple touchdowns, but good chemistry there with Jameis. And then are we believing? Are we buyers? Is McConkey the number one guy going forward? Not a conversation on the Chargers.
It sucks it happened last week because this is another amazing spot for McConkey, and now he'll just gather the ownership, unfortunately. The Browns are running man coverage at the league's highest rate, and McConkey has seen 31% of his targets for the third most yards per route run, 2 touchdowns, 19.5 yards per catch against man coverage. Kind of how he fared in college as well. So yes, another terrific spot for McConkey. The pieces around him are questionable, who you would want to tack on to Herbert if you want to go beyond McConkey. We're going to wait and see on the injury report, but we have seen that without Hayden Hurst, dude, they just feed Disley targets back and back. No touchdown just yet, but in the last 3 games since he started for Hurst, he's targeted on the third most of his routes among all tight ends. And again, we have 3 consecutive games where we have at least 4 catches, no tight end, no touchdown yet, but that seems to be like the second best receiver behind him currently.
Which I think says also more about the rest of the receivers than it does about Disley. I think, like you're saying, Rich, your thoughts as far as is it just that? Also, in Joko, I didn't mean to slight him. His prices, of course, creeping up, justifiably so. Talk about the receiving options here, Rich.
Yeah, I'll be pretty happy to fade McConkey, though, to be honest, if he's going to be really popular. He has 1 tournament-worthy score this season, and it came with a 60-yard touchdown. He hasn't gotten 70 yards in any other game besides last week. And even the man coverage stuff is kind of a lie. He only has 1 game with more than 2 catches against man coverage. So it's kind of tough to lean into it. Like, it's another one of those things, like looking under the hood. It kind of could be kind of like a little bit of a myth here, kind of what we have. But, Denzel Ward being out opens up the door. It's interesting because that from a Charger stance, I think it's more spread out still. We'll see if DJ Shark plays in this game, but the Brown side is probably more what I'm focused on, just because I can count on the dropbacks there. We know they're probably going to have to throw the football in this game. We've got Njoku. Even the ghost of Elijah Moore made an appearance last week. But yeah, I mean, Cedric Tillman is, again, he's got 25% of his routes against, of zone coverage, which is kind of what we've seen the last 2 weeks. I will say, though, remember the Ravens are missing their 2 starting cornerbacks last week. That's another thing that goes into the Jameis Winston kind of bucket too, as well, is like, how real was it? Because, the Ravens are a team that even with those 2 guys, Nate Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey, had allowed some back end production, especially late in games. So we'll see how real it is. But I do think that if McConkey at his price is going to be the most popular wide receiver on the slate, which he is on Wednesday night, he has 1 tournament worthy score this season. I'll be happy if that's like the guy that's the most popular guy on the slate.
That's a fair take from ownership. I wish I had a better thought on Nick Chubb, because we've kind of gotten the exact Nick Chubb run out we thought we would coming back from injury, and that he's averaged 2 and 3.3 yards per carry, but he's gotten every touch, just 1 catch in that time. The Chargers defense, again, they haven't been tested yet, so we don't know. The last couple of games, they have seeded production to running backs. James Conner over 100 yards and 50 receiving yards. Alvin Kamara and Kendry Miller last week both averaged over 5 yards per carry. Kamara had over 50 receiving yards. So I think it is a sneaky spot for Nick Chubb if you're trying to stack Herbert instead. But again, maybe the efficiency just isn't there, and that's the player he is. It's been games against the Bengals and Ravens, so the question is still out there.
His 16 rushing attempts, 2 passing, 2 balls thrown his way. Neither were caught, but 18 opportunities is at least interesting in theory. You got anything on Chubb? Anything else as far as this game, Rich, or shall we move on?
No, I mean, the problem with Chubb at his price is you need multiple touchdowns. And, you need multiple touchdowns because, like Dean kind of alluded to, you just can't count on any involvement in the passing game.
Can he break off like a 50-yarder these days?
I mean, it's tough. Like Daigle said, like we can't just assume that it's like he's going to be like old Nick Chubb, right? Like we're all rooting for it to happen, but I mean, it was such a significant injury. Like, it's really hard to say. Like he's just going to be back. Like that's going to come back.
And right now, these first 2 games are what happened to Javonte Williams. He did come back. He had a career high in touches, but he also had a career low in yards per touch.
Yeah, we did see Chubb squat like 1,000 pounds, though. I don't know how that factors in.
Yeah,
but that was
we
pretty
get points
impressive.
For this? Do we get points for this?
The bold take of the show is this game is going to outscore Cowboys Falcons.
Yeah. I will say for the Tillman thing is I don't think it's because these guys pop up during the course of every fantasy season, right? Like you have these guys, but I don't think it's like a situation like Jalen Tolbert, who was never going to jump CeeDee Lamb, right? Like that was never going to happen. It's not like Tutu Atwell and Jordan Whittington for the same reasons we knew eventually Puka and Cooper Kupp would come back. Like there is a non-zero chance. Like he's going up against Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore, like David Njoku aside, like I'm just talking receivers only. Like there still is a non-zero chance. Like he could have more targets than those guys the rest of the season. Like it's not like those two players have really lived up to what their pedigree was entering the NFL. So I'm not completely like shutting the door on him. I think from a season-long stance, the Browns schedule, like the rest of the schedule is like really bad. But I think short term, like it still is a non-zero chance. Like he does out-target these guys.
And even Elijah Moore, it's just easier to click now because Jerry Jeudy's the one. It's been over a full calendar year since he's done anything. I'm sure there are people who took on Jeudy in tournaments last week, and it was just another week where he was third in scoring among their, or fourth if you include David Njoku, among their skill players.
Yeah, it's not hard to get to the top of the podium when you're competing with Moore and Jeudy. If you're Tillman, you're certainly got a shot to be the top guy. All right, next game, last game amongst the three. It's the Rams at Seattle. That's in the late window. We have DK Metcalf not practicing, but the team, they're optimistic he'll play. I guess we'll assume he plays for the sake of this conversation. But of course, this conversation is fluid. It's taking place on a Wednesday night. How do you know it's Wednesday night if you're not listening to us live? Because Aaron Judge just homered. Shout out to the Yankees and Aaron Judge. I was told he's not clutch. He's incapable of hitting a baseball when the lights are on. Okay, different conversation. I don't want to derail it. My apologies. Okay, so the Seahawks are 2-point dogs here at home. 48.5 is the total. John, I will go with you first. Start wherever you want to start. Rams, Seahawks.
We'll take the Rams side, obviously hoping Metcalf is back to give this game a little bit of life. But we saw on Thursday night, the gang was all back together. And in that contest, the Rams averaged a season best 5.8 yards per play, unexpectedly. And then now you look over their last 8 games that Puka, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson in 3 wide sets, because in week 12 last year, recall that he trumped Tutu Atwell in that role. And now in those last 8 games, including the wild card loss to the Lions, the Rams has averaged 6.2 yards per play with all their guys at full strength. That would have finished as the 3rd best offense last year and 5th best so far this season. Not only that, but not apples to apples, but Sean McVay and Stafford took on, remember, Mike McDonald and the Ravens defense last year, which was a historically great unit by every metric, and they scored 31 points. Stafford had 294 yards and 3 passing touchdowns, didn't get the ball back in overtime. Otherwise, he would have gone for over 300. So we have a little bit of faith here that they can beat this coverage scheme altogether with everyone at full strength as well. So I do like attacking it from the Rams side. And that's what makes it fun because it's wide open. Like we all know what the Seahawks have been allowing on the ground to opposing running backs. You have to go all the way back to week 3 since the last backfield to not combine for over 120 yards against them. And that was the Dolphins without Tua in that one. Otherwise, everyone gets there. And this is not a combined backfield. This is all Kyle Williams, who scored a touchdown in every game now. And even last week continues handling every single touch despite a sprinkling of Blake Corum here and there. So yeah, I think the Rams offense as a whole is going to be a fun one here.
Yeah, you got to love Kyron. Touch on Kyron if you have anything else there, Rich. By all means, I saw you nodding along, so I think you agree. And the receiving options, Nakua is back, Kupp is back. Thoughts there before we jump to Seattle?
Yeah, this game is interesting because both these teams flipped. I mean, Seattle was 29th in defending pass plays in October after they were 4th in September. They started that season with Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, and Skylar Thompson. The defense has really struggled now that they face some opponents. And they also got diced by Daniel Jones without Malik Neighbors at home as part of that sample as well. And the Rams have flipped. Their defense is actually coming together. They actually were 9th in this month, in passing success rate as a defense. They were 31st in September. And a big part of it is the pass rush. I mean, Jared Verse is now up to a 21% pressure rate on his pass rush snaps. It's 2nd in the NFL behind only Aiden Hutchinson among pass rushers with 100 snaps. And Aiden Hutchinson isn't moving. And his metrics aren't changing the rest of the year. Byron Young is 17th on that same list. And when the Rams have pressured the quarterback this past month, they have allowed a 43% completion rate. That's 7th in the NFL, 6 yards per pass attempt. That's 14th in the NFL. And Geno Smith has been hypersensitive to pressure this season. He's 29th in the league in rating under pressure this season, 5.8 yards per pass attempt, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Without DK Metcalf, we talked about this game last week. Like, this team just has no explosive players outside of Kenneth Walker, and they can't run the football. This team can't run the football either. Geno Smith without DK Metcalf last week, 2.9 air yards per pass attempt, the lowest for a quarterback in a game this season. So, like, can they generate splash plays without DK Metcalf? And if DK Metcalf plays, is he 100%, right? Like, this is the other avenue we have. So I'm basically looking at this game, and I'm really only interested in the Ram side.
Yeah, looking at Seattle, like, who are the splash players outside of Metcalf? It's not Lockett. We always talk about how he just goes down immediately. JSN with his 5A dot, whatever it is. Bobo and his 640-yard dash or whatever the number of people are making it out to be. Yeah, it's you really, really need Metcalf in there, obviously. What do you have as far as Seattle, Daigle? And are you a little bit more enthused about the Seahawks than Rich sounds like?
It's, as you said, we just need Metcalf in this game. The last 2 weeks, because of blowout purposes, Seattle has only thrown 28, 29 pass attempts, whereas you go back to the 5 games before that, because they were in competitive contest, Geno was averaging 45 pass attempts per game. So, again, we just have to have that production from DK. Otherwise, we questioned last week, recall, about will Ryan Grubb change Jackson Smith-Njigba's role in this contest. And it was pretty much the same thing, just a 7-yard depth of target. Jake Bubble was out there as the team's third receiver, but 1 catch, 15 yards. You can't replicate DK Metcalf. That's the issue. So, again, we're just crossing our fingers.
Yeah, Rams are a huge cover 3 team. Like, they played just a ton of zone. JSN against cover 3 this season literally averages less than a yard per out run, 0.38 yards per out run, and only target on 15% of his routes. Just nothing really kind of glaring there. Maybe the one Seattle guy you can twist my arm and say just to plug your nose and throw in would be Noah Fant, like the one dude, right? Like, he's getting a lot of usage against cover 3. 2 weeks ago, we talked about I think we've talked about Seahawks 3 weeks in a row when they played the Falcons, and we talked about, because the Falcons run a ton of, that's Raheem Morris, obviously, where'd Raheem Morris come from, right? And we talked about those splits again with DK Metcalf, and in that game, Noah Fant had all of his catches and yards against when the Falcons were in cover 3, 4 for 65. So maybe you can twist my arm. The Rams have been getting blasted by tight ends, but at least they've played good ones, right? Like, so they're like one of the few teams that have actually played good tight ends this year. Laporta, Trey McBride, Tucker Kraft, Brock Bowers. But Fant would be the one guy maybe you just say, screw it, I'm just going to punt and run him back with Kyron Williams or whatever stack you're making with the passing game.
And right now, again, Wednesday, it ended up last week where we didn't really have many punts open up anyhow. Everyone was kind of revolving around the same cash wide receivers. But it does seem like we're lacking value right now. Yeah, I didn't get the Tillman. I was a donkey last week. It's like Tillman was the one you had to play in cash to unlock the nuts, because that also got you to Jaden Daniels, I think it was. Or it got you to Devon Achane.
Is Coker going to be one of the guys? We'll see.
Buddy, we're going back. I'm going to will it until it happens.
How many receivers do they have to lose for Coker to finally be viable there in Carolina?
Listen, that's why they got rid of it. That's why they got rid of Deontay. They said, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy.
They saw the kid from Holy Cross and said, we got him.
Yeah, we got to get him on the field.
John, I'm curious, what was the 4th game? There's always like a 4th game on the fringe you were considering. Was there a 4th game where you're like, maybe we'll feature this one that just didn't make the cut, or was there not one?
Raiders Bengals. That was the one that nearly made it. There are enough exciting plays in that one to where it could be fun. The Bengals have been an entirely different offense without T. Higgins, so it's a little bit concerning, but the Raiders defense, maybe it doesn't matter. Plus, there's this report coming out from Antonio Pierce that shakeups are coming, because he says they have no identity. I don't know what those shakeups would be.
It's Mike Singletary. This is Mike Singletary all over again.
Yeah.
It's
Singletary had a great stare, at least, if nothing else.
I guess he'll keep his pants on, but this is Mike Singletary.
It was all worrisome enough where I was like, okay, letlet's just shy away from there.
The kids don't even know.
Google that one, kids. Mike Singletary in the pants. But the Pierce, 2.5 minutes to go, down by 8 on the 8-yard line, and
taking a field goal.
Well, I still can't get over it. I can't forget that happens. I know there's some befuddling things.
That was a 17 play drive as well with your backup quarterback off the bench, and they are just willing themselves to try and beat a division opponent. That was against the Chiefs, right? Or was that against the Rams?
That was the Rams game.
Okay, never mind. So either way, 17 play drive. They willed themselves inside the 10-yard line, and just the fakest tough guy move ever to kick that field goal to be down by 5 rather than going to tie the game. Absolutely
you have to
absurd.
do the calculator. Like it was just I could not. I mean, sometimes it's like 51-49. You can go either way, but that was probably the most egregious. Detroit, Green Bay. John, you said something earlier that Love's not. Is he officially not playing? I thought he's gonna try to play.
We just don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Last I heard, he didn't practice today, and we don't know.
And we also can't trust it because they told us for 2 weeks when we knew his knee was sideways that he was going to play up until every Sunday. Do you remember they wouldn't even declare Malik Willis a starter either week? It's we got this Shanahan coaching tree. We got to stop. These guys got to be stopped. We don't need gamesmanship here.
Don't they know FanDuel and DraftKings and Splash, all these companies? Why do they think they exist? Why do they think we're watching the games? Don't they understand how this works?
And we ain't playing receivers from Malik Willis. Again, Malik Willis was fine because the 6.5 carries per game, but Jaden Reed, 59 total yards, -9 air yards. Dobbs led them with 40 yards in both games. We just can't get there for the receivers.
Yeah, they had a 33% drop back rate on 154 plays this season with Malik Willis on the field.
Yeah, terrible.
So,
taking us back
to be fair, they're probably going to have to score points regardless of who plays. So they might not be able to get away with that here because the Lions just look so damn good. So,
dude,
are they the best team in the league, Detroit?
Yeah, I think they're the best all-around football team.
They're cruising.
They talked about finding somebody to replace for Hutchinson. I don't know if there's something out there, but it's good to see just the teams are active in the trade market, and good to see teams are willing to say,
Brad
the season's over.
Dude, Brad Holmes understands the assignment.
Yeah. What is the deadline? It's coming up, right? You guys
November 5th.
November 5th, right?
November 5th.
About a week away.
And it's funny because every broadcast always mentions Ben Johnson's emptying out the bag. I don't think they realize that bag is bottomless. He comes up with something new every single week. So much so we had the Khalif Raymond orbit route to get him in motion inside the 10-yard line for a touchdown behind a pick play. Dude, that guy is just scheming up whatever the hell he wants. They're becoming.
Is he new Andy Reid?
I was about to say that they're becoming Chiefs light inside the 5-yard line because they just get bored. We'll just figure out something. Bored. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're also
great pass from David Montgomery too. Real good form, nice spiral. We had a
spiral was tight.
We had a lot of position player passes last week. Cortland Sutton had a 30-yard completion. We were cooking, man.
Why can't Montgomery play quarterback for the Panthers? The Panthers to trade for him,
just wildcat Montgomery.
Why not? And I was going to say, Detroit's the new.
They just look fun. It's a division game. It's in Green Bay. Green Bay played them good last year, so I'm excited. That division looks pretty gnarly. The NFC North looks pretty
Minnesota.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah, certainly better than and that should be fun to see how that unfolds as the season progresses. We're at the halfway point,
and I love LaFleur too. I think LaFleur is just he I just wish he wasn't doing this stuff, man.
As far as being,
but is it because they're on bye next week too? And I understand they probably would love to play if they can because it's a division game and this is a big game in the contest of winning the division. But if he really can't play and they have a bye next week and you just have to punt a week,
you got to have a long-term approach in this one. We're at the halfway point of the podcast as well because we just knocked out our 3 featured games. We'll give our favorite plays position by position in just a second, but I do want to mention, I did shout out Splash earlier. Yeah, Splash, they're still running a lot of Survivor Revival contests as well as Pick'em and Fantasy Tier contests. Join the community games, splashsports.com/RotoGrinders. Use the promo code ROTO10 upon sign up for a $10 bonus. Limited time, play $20 in quick picks entries, and you'll get an additional $10 bonus. Also exclusive for those that use the RotoTen promo, you'll get an additional $20 in credits when you play $50 in entries by the end of October. So do that quickly because October is almost over. Check Splash Sports today and be sure to use promo code 10 to get the best bonuses available. Also want to mention RG Combo. busiest times as far as the sports calendar. There's still some baseball going on. Maybe not when you're listening to this on a Friday. We'll see, depending on how the baseball goes down the next couple days. But yeah, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, MMA for limited time. You get yourself combo access, just $79 and change for your first month. That's only $5 more than NBA Premium a la carte. So a lot of people, of course, excited about the NBA season. You get everything, just $5 more. Last thing before we move on, do want to mention to join the fun each week as far as the RotoGrinders Listener League. Play alongside viewers as well as your favorite host. You'll have a chance to win every week to compete for a first place prize. Get yourself a full month of RG Premium. Check out the link in the description for an invite. It is limited to 200 spots. So check that out on the YouTube. Of course, as you're clicking that, you hit the like button as well. All right, Rich, give me some quarterbacks we've not yet discussed. Who are we excited about?
Yeah, I mean, this slate's got a lot of plays on it, so I will not try to step and go crazy because we have so many things to talk about. Obviously, if money is no object, you can play Jalen Hurts. Against the Jaguars, we've seen Jalen Hurts since he's come back from bye. Only Jared Goff has thrown for more yards per pass attempt than Jalen Hurts. They're not throwing the ball a lot since they've come back, but you're getting the Jaguars who are 31st in passing points allowed per attempt. Obviously, we know about the man coverage stuff with Jacksonville, something we beat on. Jalen Hurts has been incredible on dropbacks against man coverage this season because they have Hercules at wide receiver, who you can always play with him anytime a team wants to play man coverage. Also, Jaguars allowed double-digit rushing yards to a quarterback in every game this season. So if money is no object, which on this slate, there are going to be some restrictions, but you can play Jalen Hurts. I want to speak to the FanDuel gamers out there, which we don't, everyone always complains that we don't give FanDuel enough love. But Sam Darnold in this spot on FanDuel in the Sunday night game being a slate. We know the Colts don't play man coverage. We know what Gus Bradley's going to do. 29th rated man coverage. They run a high rate of cover 3, 44% of their snaps. When they do play another coverage, it's cover 2 for the bulk of their snaps. Those rates are 4th and 12th in the league. Darnold against cover 3 this season, 75% completion rate, 6th in the NFL, 8.6 yards per pass attempt. That's 9th in the NFL. Against cover 2, he leads the NFL at 13 yards per pass attempt. So Darnold looks pretty good. And I'll leave it. I have another guy too. Let's see if Daigle gets to him.
I did run some optimal stuff on FanDuel, and Darnold, the second most popular quarterback. So yeah,
he's only 7.5 over there, which is like a reasonable. Now he doesn't run, and Dean, I ran into the mistake I made last week was I played too much Tua. I looked at Tua's price and because Tua got me an extra receiver, and it turns out you didn't need the extra receiver because the cheap receivers all got there. We talk about it, Dean, all the time. Like even from a cash game perspective, like we love those guys that could just have outs with their legs. And Tua did have a slide. Remember, I don't know if you saw the play. He had a run and he slid, and the crowd went nuts. Standing ovation. But when you play these quarterbacks that are relying on just getting there from a passing stance, you are more vulnerable.
That's why I never play Kirk Cousins. And then when he has 4 touchdowns, I'm just not going to have him. And that's how he gets there. It's how he got there last week. I think he's had 4 touchdowns twice in the last 4 weeks. It just happens sometimes. But yeah, I am certainly biased to the quarterbacks with legs as well. Let's see, Daigle. Let's see if you can take the last quarterback, and you probably have some more that Rich left you amongst his favorites.
No, my quarterback pool is actually a little smaller this week. Everything else is deep, but quarterback pretty thin for me on DraftKings. I will spend up. So if Rich's is a cheaper one, then you can kick it back to him after this. And I just want to touch on Josh Allen because we do have the fear that Sean McDermott has in their 8 career games owned Tua, and the Dolphins offense just hasn't gotten there altogether. 6.5 yards per attempt against McDermott in those contests. But then you look at the Dolphins defense though, and what's happening, and they are allowing the league's fewest points per game to quarterbacks. But in the last 3 starts around their bye, they played Mason Rudolph, Will Levis, Jacoby Brissett, and Anthony Richardson. And then, of course, their first test in quite a while, Kyler Murray just passed for a season high 307 yards, 8.5 yards per attempt against them. Also
never led in any of those games.
Yeah. And just the way Josh Allen is playing right now, like 70% completion rate, 9 yards per attempt, 19 carries in the last 3 weeks. It just seems like one of those offenses that can't be stopped. So I think people will probably box score hunt to the first contest against the Miami when they lost Tua mid-game, and they did shut him out in the first half, but Josh Allen only had 19 pass attempts. I'm not sure that's this offense anymore. So I do like spinning up, whether it's naked or just finding cheaper pieces to play with him.
That's what I was going to ask, who your favorite piece is. The addition of Cooper might muck things up a little bit, makes it a little bit tricky. And can one person excel, get a ceiling game out of Coleman, Cooper, Shakir, Kincaid? We haven't really seen. I know he got in the box last week, but like you said, Allen is similar to Hurts, where it's just he can get 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. You don't need any of his teammates. That's just how that goes.
I like that.
Rich,
I like that.
Rich, was your guy still left on the table?
Yeah, the only other guy I think we at least have to mention is Derek Carr. I mean, this
back to the Saints.
Dude, this Carolina defense, man, like it's just all time. It's just like an all-time bad defense. They have the worst point differential at this point of the season, the 3rd lowest in the 2000s. Like they just suck. Like I have nothing else to really say about it. I mean, they're dead last in passing points allowed per pass attempt, dead last in touchdown rate, 30th in completion rate, 27th in yards per pass attempt. The quarterbacks that have gotten there the past month against these guys: Caleb Williams, 24 points. Marcus Mariota, 20 points. Bo Nix, 30 points. Like, and then, also under the radar last week, a thing that matters, and maybe you just play Kamara for this reason, is the Saints did get Cesar Ruiz back last week. The Carolina's dead last in pressure rate too. And obviously that matters for a guy like Derek Carr. We just talked about not playing, a guy that is relying on passing, but he's so cheap on both sites that I actually think he opens that door for you to get there. He absolutely destroyed them in week 1, too. I don't think we're going to get that version of the Saints back again the rest of the way, but maybe that leads us to play some other guys, because I do have a lot of that game going forward, guys we'll talk about.
I believe that's a good pace game as well. Yeah, there's pretty good pace expected there. Go ahead, John.
Even if you remove the rushing points that Mariota and Bo Nix got the past 2 games and look at them exclusively as passers, Mariota scored 20 passing points and Bo Nix scored 29 passing points against the Panthers. And that's like not what those 2 guys are.
Let me touch on Bo Nix real fast, because I think he's like people will go back to him this week because of the Ravens. I do want to express some caution with Bo Nix in this particular spot. Rookie quarterbacks in Baltimore since John Harbaugh's been there are 2-16. Only 2 of those quarterbacks thrown multiple passing touchdowns. The Broncos do not even have a 20-point implied team total. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at the Ravens stats in bulk this year, they aren't good. But at home this year, they're actually 15th in yards per pass attempt allowed, 7th in touchdown rate. They only allowed a 2.9% touchdown rate. They're 8th in sack rate at home. On the road, they're 30th in yards per pass attempt, 27th touchdown rate, 6th in sack rate. And remember, they played Jaden Daniels and Josh Allen at home this year too. It's not like they beat on some powder puffs there. Both Allen and Daniels scored fewer points than they had averaged coming into that matchup. So I do want to express a little bit of caution with Nix and not just chase the run out that we got from last week.
Do we know at this point, as far as the secondary for Baltimore, if they're getting healthier, or it's just kind of up in the air?
I believe
they're supposed to get Wiggins back for sure.
Yeah, but he was at practice today.
Okay, so one of those 2 pieces coming back. By the way, I did check this. You were talking about Hribar. You're talking about Carolina and their historic ineptitude through 8 games. Their difference, like their plus minus difference. Do you guys know this, or you probably?
I think is it 147? Is that what it is up to right now? Yeah,
147, which is an average of losing by 18 points per game, and they actually won 1, so it's even worse as far as their losses.
Yeah. So for some added context to that, at this point last year, they were minus 86, and they were like the worst team we saw last year.
Yeah, and how we think Detroit is awesome. They're only a plus 100. So, how awesome Detroit is, Carolina's like 1.5 times worse the other way, if that makes sense, right? So they're plus 100, but long story short, Carolina Panthers.
Dean, one of the teams
terrible.
with the worst point differential in the 2000s at this point of the year than the Panthers right now. One of them is the 2019 Dolphins. Were you fond of the 2019 Dolphins team?
They were terrible. I remember that. I'm trying to think, who was the quarterback for the 2019 Dolphins?
That had to be Fitzpatrick, right?
Was it? I don't remember. He was certainly on there in the last 3 or 4 years. It might have been. Yeah, it's It wasn't good. There's been a lot of bad Dolphin seasons.
I mean, that was a
Last
Brian
year was
Flores team, right?
I think so.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Fitzpatrick. They started Josh Rosen 3 of those games.
There you go. That's the name I was searching for. It
Fitzpatrick for 13 starts. Josh Rosen. I don't remember the Josh Rosen Dolphin era.
I mean, what would you remember?
Dean, here's a great question for you. Who is the Dolphins' leading rusher on that team?
I don't know.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh, what an answer.
243 rushing yards.
Who was second?
Mark Walton, who I don't even think he's a human. I don't even.
What?
I apologize, Mark Walton. If you're thinking, like, there's no way. That's an NPC. Like, Mark Walton is an NPC.
Bill Walton.
They also had Kenyon Drake for a little bit. It must have got hurt. Patrick Laird mixed in. Kalen Balish, Big Blaz.
What a team.
Yeah, dude, this is an all-timer. This team, holy shit, this team is bad.
Hey,
Preston Williams, what a blast to pass. Isaiah Ford, Mark Walton, I do not remember him.
That was when they had the number 1 pick, right?
I remember a lot of dudes. I do not remember Mark Walton.
I'm gonna have to give him a Google at some point. All right, I guess Daigle, give us some running backs. Not Mark Walton.
It's actually the perfect segue because let's roll the Bo Nix concern into the big dog because Bo Nix is going to get smashed this week. Like this is such a big Derrick Henry game. And I think it's as easy as saying the Ravens are 9.5-point home favorites. And even Jaden Daniels as Josh Allen, as Rich mentioned, neither reached over 25 rushing yards. Again, that's how Bo Nix beats you. And Bo Nix is 29th in yards per attempt from a clean pocket this year. He's not beating this Ravens defense. So love Derrick Henry just as the big favorite. Devon Achane, despite being worried about Tua, is still really interesting. The RB2, RB3, and RB3 in his 3 starts with Tua this year has seen at least 7 targets in all 3 of those games. Back-to-back starts with Tua where he has 7 catches. Raheem Mostert is still the rich man's version of Roshan Johnson where he comes into the goal line and takes those carries. But between the 20s and even to that point, it's all Achane. So love him here. Brian Robinson, and I don't want to take too many. I'll just name a couple more so Rich has some, but I think it's a big running back week. Brian Robinson, it's against the Giants front 7, allowing a league high 5.4 yards per carry. And also just the matchup that we think this is probably the game where Daniel Jones is officially benched. Like Daniel Jones now the last 2 weeks without Andrew Thomas has been under pressure on 50% of his dropbacks. And Washington, this is something Rich mentioned last week, now creating the 3rd highest pressure rate over the last 4 games. Jones just 4.5 yards per attempt under pressure this season. It's not going to go well. So I'm predicting a favorable game script for Brian Robinson and the Commanders. And then finally, the one that's probably not going to make it to riches, so I will say it. We've seen it. It hasn't happened often, but we've seen in games where the Patriots can compete, they will lean on Ramondre Stevenson, including last week when he handled 23 of 28 backfield touches. Go back to the first 2 games where he had 23 and 28 touches. I don't know who's going to be out there for whether it's Will Levis or Mason Rudolph, but the Patriots, I still believe, are in a game script where it's going to be competitive. So I'm willing to take on the chance to play Ramondre Stevenson at very, very low ownership here.
We don't know either quarterback in that game, right? As far as
it sounds like May at least is promised. I think he practiced in limited, which means he's already like us. He's already clear. I think he's in like stage 3 then already, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe he's on pace to play this week, but
it's a good sign that he was already on a Wednesday at practice.
All right, Rich, who was left for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's like Daigle said, it's a really good slate. I mean, if you don't want to play Derek Carr coming back, I think that, Alvin Kamara is right back in there. We talked about getting Cesar Ruiz back. I mean, with Ruiz on the field this season, he now has rushed for 5 yards per carry as an explosive run on 14% of those runs, only a 16% stuff rate. With Ruiz off the field, he had 50 carries for 3 yards per carry, one run of 10 or more yards, and a stuff rate of 22%. He's getting that Carolina defense. We didn't get there with Javonte Williams. The touches were there, but they still allowed 60 yards and 9 touches to Jaleel McLaughlin and a touchdown. Kamara definitely has the receipt. And also the low-key thing is the Rashid Shaheed absence. Like the dudes after Chris Olave are not good. Mm-hmm. So Kamara has been targeted on 34% of his routes now this season with Shaheed off the field. And we're talking a 67 route sample. Like it wasn't like a 30 route sample. Like he's up to 70 routes with a 34% target rate per route with Shaheed off the field. Like Mason Tipton, these other dudes, like Cedric it's going to be Olave and Kamara, man. Like, and spoiler alert, Olave also very playable this week, but a couple more running backs still are on the board. Like Daigle talked about Josh Allen. I mean, James Cook already at the career high 7 touchdowns on the ground this season, or he's 8 touchdowns, 7 on the ground. It's like, oh, the happy learned how to putt thing. Like they're letting him score touchdowns. Miami's been absolutely smoked against running backs this year. I mean, they're allowing 19 rushing points per game. You don't need to just chase the box score from James Cook the first matchup, but running backs have scored 42% of the points allowed by the Dolphins this season. That's the highest rate in the league. Chase Brown, and it's just like Daigle's Derrick Henry thing. Like, so Chase Brown, the rub with Chase Brown and Zach Moss in this split is that we're still seeing Zach Moss play more as a pass catcher. So when they're in kind of like these passing scripts, you see a little bit more of Zach Moss, but we're still seeing Chase Brown continuously get more of the running back attempts. He had another 71% of the backfield rushes last week. He's gone over 70% of the backfield rushes in back-to-back games. We've got them as just 9-point home favorites, right? Like, to me, that's as simple as saying, like, this is the game environment spot for Chase Brown to maybe actually push 17 touches, right? 18, 20 touches in a game against the Raiders, a team that's literally been awful against the run this season. And one more real gross guy on a Wednesday just to earmark, and no one will probably get to him, even if he does play, is Devin Singletary. If Tyrone Tracy doesn't play, Washington, as good as they've gotten against the pass rush, they continue to just get beat up on the ground, though. And when these teams played earlier in the season, Singletary had 17 touches for 95 yards and a touchdown. So it's gross. But if we're not going to have Tyrone Tracy, before Singletary's injury, he had 66 of 87 backfield touches, and he was over 70% of backfield touches in all those games. It's really gross. But if you want to bring back for your Terry McLaurin or something else, I did write Brian Robinson down from a matchup stance, but then like, his price is weird. Like, he's oddly high priced on both sides.
I was looking at Singletary. I was surprised to see he's expensive as he is because, he's been terrible the last 3 or 4 weeks, and somehow
he doesn't play. I mean, it would have been. We would have loved to play Tyrone Tracy.
DraftKings has made sure they've protected that. Backup running backs, they will price them up this year.
Little too much, in my opinion. I like the protection. I'm not asking for a 4K running back. That's silly. But, he probably shouldn't be 6'1". There you go. That's me and my little complaint to hit the quota.
I do think pricing has this year been abnormally high.
Feels a little tighter than it has been in years past.
I feel like the one position they've lacked on is quarterback. Like, even this week, I'm not gonna get there, but even this week, the chat even brought it up. Bryce Young is 4,400. And like, if Marshawn Lattimore doesn't go, like the Saints allowing over 8 yards per attempt without Lattimore on the field this year, trust me, buddies, like Bryce Young's coming to a pick 6 contest near you.
Oh boy. 4,400. What do you need to be like okay with that? I guess if you can eke 15.
You need Mason Rudolph stats. That's what you need, because he got there at 4,400.
Was that your guy last week, Rudolph?
Yeah, that's who I played. Him and Ridley together, just because of what the Lions were giving up.
Hell of a call.
But also remember, last week it was a tight slate. It wasn't even really about, like, I think Mason Rudolph's going to do good. I thought he would do piss poor, but it was so tight across the board. My mistake was paying up for Sam Laporta for single digits, because even though DFS lesson, kids listening, even though Sam Laporta got there, it doesn't matter when the chalk tight end who's $2K cheaper gets there. So sometimes it's just about making sure you eat the right chalk, because the extra salary doesn't matter.
And I would love to get back to DeAndre Swift again, but man, like, this stuff that they're doing at the goal line to him is not very cool.
The refrigerator stuff. Yeah.
Chicago running backs, not even accounting for the dumbass play they ran with the linemen. Chicago running backs.
Have you checked it on Silva, Daigle? Is he doing okay? I don't know how much of a Bears
is he like a hardcore Bears fan though?
No, he's not a Bears. He's a hardcore Cubs fan, not a Bears fan. But
tough scene.
But the city is not doing. I had texted a few friends, not doing well.
I mean, that's a tough one, man. But Chicago running backs have 14 touches now inside the 5-yard line. Swift only has 6 of them. Like, it's a bummer that we keep, because he's been awesome, but like, we got to get this guy some goal line carries.
That was a nice call. That was one of your, I think you wrote him up last week, if I'm not mistaken. You talked about him on the show. So, yeah.
I did, but I got, he probably should have 3 touchdowns.
Yes. Well, yeah, you just got to give it to the offensive lineman. Nobody's, is that a famous, I don't know who that guy was, but it was on mute. I was listening to somebody. I was watching the game. I'm like, what is happening?
What a game too. Like it really only came down to like 2 offensive drives for the Bears, but we not only got the backup offensive lineman carry inside of 5, that was a fumble. We got the famous Tyreek Stevenson moment of just talking to the crowd during the last play when it was his job to box out Noah Brown.
Beautiful stuff.
And none of us even mentioned Jaden Daniels on this slate.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's playing football this week, right? And then as far as we know, and against the Giants, okay. I guess it's just worth noting. Hey, here's one more I want to ask about, because he's hitting optimal stuff, and I don't like it. And this is, I said to you before the show started, Rich, like, I don't like the stuff that's hitting optimals. Obviously Wednesday night things change, but Hubbard, just like he maths well. But
yeah, you gotta wait though, because Jonathan Brooks did practice today in full. So we just got to kind of earmark like whether or not Jonathan Brooks is going to debut or not.
Is there a non-zero chance that he plays like 0 minutes or 0 minutes? Like
I
zero
doubt
carries
it. I don't see any reason
he's
why.
going to play. Okay, so they're going to play him at some point.
And like
I feel like they're about to just start playing the hell out of these young guys, man.
Yep.
We'll see if they end up moving Adam Thielen, but it really feels like they're just about to like. I think they've seen Leggett and Coker give them just enough to where they were, and Deontay Johnson behind the scenes. Apparently, there was stuff going on that like they're just going to play these, like see what they have from these young guys, and then just go into next year and see what they need to adjust.
For the first time all year, last week, like Miles Sanders was also involved heavily in garbage time, and that's like Chuba. That's not how he's been getting there. He's been really good, but you need that garbage time when you're the Panthers.
Yeah, and normally, like, I don't like freak out about like, oh, what if a game blows out? Well, okay, like what you can tell what if about everything, but for Carolina, it's a really real possibility based upon negative 147.
This is not a betting show, but just to let everyone know, like we only have 3 to 5 more chances for generational wealth to bet against Bryce Young. Like I hope everyone's I hope everyone's trying to get it in. Even last week, like they got handicapped because the Panthers got a free touchdown at the beginning, but the Broncos were 8-point favorites. They closed and they still won by 3-4 touchdowns. The last I checked, the Saints are only favored by 7 points. Again, we gotta feed our kids off Bryce Young, man. Get it.
That's what I'm seeing. 7 as well. 7 in Carolina. Tough scene for sure.
All right. Also, in case you're wondering about this not being a betting show, Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush has also hit 6 weeks in a row again.
What's the number? What do they keep putting at? Like 13 or 14?
Yeah, it's usually like 13.5 to 14.5. Sometimes we get a 15.5 if someone bets it, hammers it right away. But I have bet Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush since the start of last year like 21 times.
Like, and it's like 19-2. Like what's the record?
It's literally like 95%.
It's amazing.
If it wasn't for David Montgomery, he would be the best fantasy running back. Like there's not even a question.
This is usually the time of the year that we do become a betting show too. So this works out.
That is true. Also, Derrick Henry, his is always juiced. Like last week, it was 20.5. He has a run of 27 or more yards in every game since week 1.
Really?
But his keeps getting juiced up. They keep jamming his line up. Like they're not playing around. But Gibbs low key flies. I can consistently say from a player prop market, and I don't know if Daigle still like talks like Connor Allen, who's like those dudes. Noonan and Connor Allen are way deeper than I am. But my two favorite markets that I think that are constantly mislined are running back longest runs and running back receiving yard props. Like they literally just sliced the running back average. Last week, Devin Achane's receiving yards were 23.5. Like, dude, I was dropping just like half. I was going half bankroll, like what I had for
7 units, like, 25 units.
Dude, I didn't care. It was the most ludicrous thing ever. But they don't account for matchups either. Like teams that are like give up a lot of production to running backs. It's like literally just the running back average, like every week. So you can constantly cherry pick stuff in those markets.
I know the most profitable, the way Connor Allen and Ryan Noonan attack for 4 are on negative correlated parlays because they're actually positively correlated. Like on FanDuel, you get great odds if you do like Dontavian Wicks under 3.5 catches, but over 60.5 yards, because those types of players like Jameson Williams, that's how they score points. Like a George Pickens, under 4.5 receptions, over 60 yards. And those are big in correlation despite being negatively correlated. So I know 4-4 is very big on that and they're very successful with it. And ETR, we've had a real good run on receiving leaders, not just on the week, but in games. And like trying to get the best odds there. Like Darius Slayton, for instance, this past week beat us, but George Pickens, George Pickens was second, third best odds to lead that game in receiving against the Giants. And it's like, well, he has the better matchup than Malik Neighbors, so he probably should be favored, not plus money.
And it was Slayton that got there,
Yeah, and it was Slayton who got there.
I only have one sports book, the Hard Rock, and unfortunately, they did not offer those things. But
that's my buddy. My buddy lives in Florida, and he says the same thing, man. Like we're out every Sunday because I have a buddy, Daigle met. He did a tight end touchdown prop bet and 130,000.
Oh, yeah. Elliot
did Scott.
Oh, okay. He won 30K.
Elliot, who lives in Florida with Dean. Yeah, Scott won 30K. Daigle met him. He did a 4-leg $200 boosted bet was K. Dotton. So this is the dilemma we had. So this is a fun story on Sunday. So it was Njoku, K. Dotton, and Laporta in the early slate all hit. The final payout if he hit was 30K. It was like 29.8. He had George Kittle left, and they offered him 8K to cash out.
It's not enough.
And I told him, I was like, dude, this is a ludicrous offer. So we devised to just go to DraftKings, and Kittle for no touchdown was like and I was like, you just hedged with Kittle no touchdown they let him put up to 5K on that, and Kittle ended up scoring, and it all worked out. But I was like, dude, the offer was, dude, Kittle had 45% implied odds to score a touchdown in that game, and they were offering him like a third of the payout.
Yeah,
and it was like, it's just laugh.
98% of the time, like 99% of the time, like the buyout offer is ridiculous. It's like the first offer on Deal or No Deal. You know what I mean?
And remember, Kittle caught the touchdown. They threw a flag. They called offensive pass interference. They picked up the flag. We were going crazy. Wow. We were going crazy.
You were watching it with them, or like on the phone, or
like we were, obviously we were, invested. Like, they wanted to see my friend win, and And when he caught the touchdown, and we saw the flag, we were like, no, like what the? He's like, pick it up.
That's incredible. What a sweat.
They never pick it up. They picked it up.
Yeah. But he said everyone the whole day was telling him to just cash out. And I'm like, dude, this is a shit offer, man. Like,
you shop around and you get the opposite side. You're always going to get, almost always. I don't like to
great story, though. He did the tight end, the tight end parlay bet.
But most people, though, to be fair, most people, when they heard about it, like they only heard 8K, a free 8K. They didn't hear about like implied odds. They weren't listening to that shit. So that's why he had you.
All right.
But he's good. He's a real good sports bettor, though. Does great.
Good for him. Congratulations. I always like to hear those stories. And I like that he did the right thing, and I hope he's not upset that he lost 5K, because that was still
right. I was like, dude, just do it. I was like, as much as they'll let you put down on Kittle no TD, just do that, and you're gonna come out ahead. You're gonna win money. But
Daigle, receivers, who do we got?
Oh, we're still on receivers.
I think we started.
We didn't start receivers, I don't think.
Good, because we only spent like 35 minutes on the games because we were skeptical aside, so we could spend time on the positions. That's okay. Rich already said it. Everyone knows that if you play man coverage against AJ Brown, you're going to just get scorched. Literally, the only receiver in the league averaging over 5 yards per route run against man coverage. Jaguars playing at the 4th highest rate. So get AJ Brown in your lineups this week. We talked about Chris Olave. It's been 60 plays now with him on the field and Shaheed off of it. And Olave's been targeted on has a 41% target share on those plays. So we can go right back to Chris Olave in this game. I actually don't know how I'm going to dwindle down my options on the Saints. Maybe we just have to triple or quad stack the Saints to get all these points. Yeah.
I mean, you got to play because I was talking to Ray about this, and he was talking about like playing Tipton. And I'm like, do you not just play Kamara Olave Carr?
Yeah. Oh, but we're gonna get to Taysom Hill too, though. That's the thing.
Play Coker instead of Tipton if you want to run back. If you want a cheap receiver in that game.
I mean, Coker's the bring back, dude. I'm gonna talk about Coker.
He's assumed. Coker's assumed.
I'm leaving Coker for Rich. I will instead go to Calvin Ridley. Don't like to chase the explosive games, but it was a 39% target share, and the first one without DeAndre Hopkins. And then even the last 3 weeks, the Patriots defense is continuing to struggle. Stephon Diggs, 677-1. Brian Thomas Jr. at 589-1. And then last week, Garrett Wilson, 5 catches for 113 yards. So we're gonna wait and see on Will Levis. I think I'd be lighter on Ridley if Levis is under center, but Mason Rudolph clearly had a preference for him. And then the last one is Jacoby Myers. And when people tweeted about Brock Bowers' dominance, I always got a little skeptical because we said this last week.
Yeah.
We saw Jacoby Myers like out target Brock Bowers in the 2 games they played without Devontae Adams. And then Myers comes back, and now we've seen 3 games without Adams and those 2 together. And Myers, we have a trade, by the way, someone is saying. Oh, no. Okay, good. He's late to that. Myers now has a 31% target share to Bowers, 26 targets to 20. So Myers is the player we should actually have a preference for among the Raiders, not Bowers, although he's still really good. So I still like sneaking Myers in there, who's probably closer to like a wide receiver 2 in fantasy than he's perceived as.
Yeah, I think if the field wants to play McConkey, I want to play Myers, large field. If you want to play McConkey and cash, that's fine. I just think from a tournament perspective, he's going to be the highest on wide receiver. There are a lot of McConkey-like dudes. So Myers is definitely on my list of those guys.
The 2 most popular players on my DK, optimals, McConkey and Olave, both coming in at 30%. Myers, the 4th most popular, at 24%. So just
and I was wondering like if Olave, and I knew DFS dudes always get there, especially over the course of the week, but I was looking at like initial like industry rankings. I always like to compare my rankings to industry rankings, and like Olave was like the wide receiver 25 or something, and I was like, this is how he's going to be handled this week. And then I just think eventually like everyone will talk about this stuff all week and it'll come around.
Side note, Pittman, most popular on FanDuel at 40%. He's 5'8" over there. Yeah. I guess we should talk about that. How much?
What about Josh Downs?
Yeah, so I have Downs for my FanDuel peeps.
Downs at 10%. What the price is? So Pittman is 5'8".
He is 6'9".
Downs is 6'9". It's a big difference
on FanDuel for sure. That's a big difference. But I mean, Downs has been so good.
Sure.
I mean, he and with Flacco, I mean, he's a 28% target share. Pittman only has an 18% target share. Pittman also might be playing hurt, like with the back injury. So he is tough. I mean, I think but the Vikings do give up a bunch of production to wide receivers. It's like kind of a myth as good as their defense is. They give up a lot of production to wideouts. So. But they've been awful to slot receivers all year, which Downs has kind of had that. I mean, they've just had such a good connection, him and Flacco. So I'm definitely excited about Downs. I think I would still pay the 6'9" for Downs because McConkey's 6'4" on FanDuel. And like the game environment for Indianapolis, Minnesota, as much as we think Browns Chargers could be going over, Minnesota Colts is a lot more so exciting.
That should be a fun game. I think that was a flex, right? I think is that the flex that starts this week? What did they flex out? I don't remember. Was something terrible?
I forget what it was. It was something we were not interested in.
They need to flex out the Jets. I can't take a 5th game where you have to see them in prime time tomorrow.
I got bad. Okay, yeah. I'm assuming. I'm sure you know, but yeah.
It's Jets, literally the 5th time we've seen them, and they're the worst team.
Enough.
They're literally the worst team in EPA since Robert Saleh was fired. Like the one guy who would stand up to Aaron Rodgers, they got rid of as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's I don't think I'm watching it. I'll be watching basketball on Thursday night. I'm pretty sure I'm not watching.
You don't want to see Joe Mixon have 25 carries?
Well, he's like the last man standing, right? With Diggs being out. I didn't dig into this stuff as far as the receivers because it's not on our slate. But
we've had it's
pretty thin.
We've had a full month of Nico Collins not being there. We know. You don't need to dig in. We've seen it already.
Producer Steve asking if I'm going trick-or-treating. Do I look like I'm going trick-or-treating?
Do you pass out candy?
I'm the guy that puts like the bucket out and like
it's such a Dean move. That is peak Dean. There's nothing more Dean than that.
Grab as much as you want. Have a good. I won't even put a sign limit to. Enjoy yourself.
I did walk home the other day because I usually just like walk out to start my day with coffee, and there was a 12-pack outside, and it said "Take one, trick or treat," and it was just a 12-pack of Fanta soda. I was like, that seems like giving up.
I thought it was beer. I thought you were gonna say it was just be like, take these beers.
Did you take one?
No, I don't even drink soda. No,
it's
like water, coffee, and alcohol flows through these veins. That's about it. By the way, the chat says Jags Eagles was the one flexed out.
Oh, we dodged one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Jags
I mean, we do have to talk about a couple guys in that game. Well, we mentioned the 2 Eagles, and we'll see who's alive for the Jaguars on Sunday.
Yeah, Kirk obviously Dunzo. Thomas probably plays, but we don't know.
No, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. I shouldn't say. But is Parker Washington possibly a thing? I guess is that a name people might be
cheap
talking
enough.
about?
He wasn't very good last year when he played, but we could have said that about Cedric Tillman too, right? And then we've seen what happened to Cedric Tillman in year 2 getting an opportunity. So we know he's going to play the slot for sure. Well, if Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis might not play either in that game. Definitely Evan Ingram. We get there. Evan Ingram is definitely a guy you can play.
That's the play.
But,
we're gonna talk about
it. Because I think I would rather play Coker just to get us back on track.
I can't believe this is what we're doing, but
we saw it last week, man. I mean, it's 78 yards, his first career touchdown. He has a first down or touchdown on 74% of his targets this season. Leads the team in yards per out run. And we've seen now the Saints where they give up production is to these interior wide receivers. So if we don't get Thielen back, Coker played 74% of his snaps in the slot last week. Saints are 28th in receptions allowed per game to slot receivers, 29th in yards per target. I know we did this a couple weeks ago, and I played Coker. Dean, you played him and won money with him at least, so you did better than I did.
It wasn't because I have, but like
I think the target opportunity is that there's no Deontay Johnson, right? Like this trade of Deontay Johnson. We were playing him with Deontay Johnson still. No Deontay. I do think that the opportunity is here for him to be a bring back or just a one-off in that game.
The fear is that, like that one game y'all played him, the cards were flipped. And somehow, even with Deontay Johnson, he was like 11 to 14% rostered. The fear is that we flip Jalen Coker because we don't have value just yet. And suddenly he's 20 to 40% rostered.
What about Leggett? Like, why don't we think? I know he's more. I know
just because they've been better against outside receivers. Like, I think from a matchup stance, it just favors Coker a little bit more. But Leggett leads the team in end zone targets now.
He did score his touchdown against Pat Surtain too. Like, that has to count for something.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't mind. I guess if one's going to be really popular and the other's not, I have no problem with just saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if it's going to be somebody popular, it's going to be the Coker. And yeah, by the way, just I made this for fun. Daigle, you probably did this already. Young, Coker, 3K defense, 3K tight end. You have almost 7-2 to spend for the next 5 positions. You could have a lot of fun with that. I don't know if that's something you're talking yourself into or not. Just throwing it out there. Is that
Carr's cheap enough too, though? Anyways, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get there. Because
what is Carr on DraftKings?
Let's see. I think he's
got to be in the 5s, right?
5-6. Yeah,
that's fine.
Because even wasn't Jalen Hurts? Was he the winning quarterback last week in like the power sweep in the Wildcat? Yeah,
4 touchdowns, 3 on the ground.
I thought spending up was actually the logical way to go. Mason Rudolph and Kyler Murray were like right behind him, just because everyone talked about the Dolphins. It was pretty sharp actually for everyone to just instead run Kyler Murray double stacks at the Dolphins against ownership.
Was there a trade in chat? Like, I see what you're saying now, Daigle, as well. Is there a trade that was made? Jags traded their.
They're talking about old trades.
That's an old
guys. Trade. Rich and I are like at our computers 23 hours out of 24 hours. Like, please do not dump trades that happened 48 hours ago on our plates. Like, I can't take news right now.
Listen, we didn't talk about it with quarterbacks because obviously like there's some other high priced dudes, but like Lamar was a pretty big winner with the Deontay trade. Like, this is by far the best set of receivers Lamar's ever had. He's got all dudes that just get open, and man, like Denver, as good as they've been, dude, look at the quarterbacks they've played this year. Obviously, Bryce Young last week. The week before, it was Rattler. They did play Herbert. Then it was Minshew-O'Connell combo, Aaron Rodgers. The one good game they played Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Geno Smith. Like, they also have not played anybody.
See, it's a great point, but I feel like we do this like a lot of guys. There's just a lot. We're just going to find out there's a lot of bad quarterback play. And we're going to figure that out. But, we're getting the worst there. That's important. I didn't know the Charger one. That was definitely important. We don't know if the Chargers defense is good because they haven't really faced a real live quarterback just yet.
Okay. Yeah, I at least do like some of the personnel Denver has, the belief that they could be like, it definitely is an above average unit. I have questions still how good the Chargers defense is for sure.
I recall, because I drop thousands of my own money on this every single weekend. I recall my biggest mistakes the past couple of years have been to say those very questions. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. But I feel like my biggest losses have come when I look at what perceived to be a good defense, and I'm like, they got the players, but they haven't played anybody yet. And that includes like Geno Smith last year against the Ravens, who were historically great, just failed to get there. And then Joe Flacco, remember, we did this against the Titans, just didn't get there either. So that's the only thing at the back of my mind right now.
Yeah, the Titans I still think have a good defense. They still haven't played anybody because even last week, the Lions were actually under 5 yards per play. Goff was under 6 yards per pass attempt. Their special temes was an absolute travesty, and they gave a bunch of short fields. I still believe the Titans, from a personnel stance, actually have pieces that are good.
Mm-hmm.
Their quarterback sucks, and what are you gonna do?
38-37. Like the under in New England, Tennessee. I don't feel good about the over in that game.
I just want to bet the Patriots. I think if May plays.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, fair. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, let's move on. Let's knock out tight ends. After tight ends, we'll talk about our movie.
I still have a couple of receivers left, oddly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got sidetracked. I apologize. What do you got?
This slate's got a lot of dudes, man. A lot of dudes.
It does. It's loaded up.
I mean, Terry McLaurin, for sure, stands out to me. If you remember, the last time these teams played back in week 2, afterwards, Cliff Kingsbury had the commentary of like they just had to find a way to get Terry McLaurin utilized more downfield, because in that game he had a season low 3.9 air yards per target. He had 6 catches for 22 yards in that game, and since that matchup he's averaged 16.8 air yards per pass attempt. No player with as many targets as McLaurin has a higher depth of target over that span. Giants are 24th in points allowed to opposing wide receiver ones, 27th in yards per target allowed to those guys. On throws, 20 yards or more downfield to wide receivers, the Giants have allowed a league high 72% catch rate. The league average is 35%. So they're double the league average on those. So if we get a couple moon balls from Terry McLaurin, man, Jaden Daniels threw him an awesome one last week.
Yep.
It's a bummer that he keeps getting tackled on these, though. Like he catches the 60-yard, but he's like the only dude that catches 60-yard bombs and somehow gets tackled from behind on him. But I do like him. And even though I did kind of poo-poo Bo Nix a little bit, I still think the spot for Cortland Sutton at his price is too cheap. Even if Wiggins and Humphrey play, I mean, he's just getting a lot of targets, and we know that they're 9-point dogs. Like as bad as Bo Nix could potentially play in that game, and we're a little bit worried about that. Like they're going to throw a lot still. There's going to be a lot of dropbacks in that game. So I think he's on the board too. And also don't forget that if you do play on FanDuel, Justin Jefferson is also on that against Gus Bradley.
Can I just throw this out there? I remember last week, everybody was losing their minds saying, oh my God, Tyreek Hill is too cheap. He's too cheap. And he's done nothing. I understand the quarterback stuff. But Tua came back. He still did nothing. And he's basically the same price, and we didn't mention him. Just kind of saying, I get it's a different matchup.
Well, because everyone knows McDermott has absolutely owned them. I mean, Tua's 1-7 against McDermott. Against Mike McDermott, 8 games, 61.9% completion rate, 6.8 yards per pass attempt, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And when he had the concussion in week 2, it wasn't like that happened in the first quarter. That was in the second half. At that point of the game, he had already thrown 3 interceptions and was threw for 5.8 yards per pass attempt. I will say, if you want to go against the grain, though, and you do want to stack those guys, this would be the week, because you're going to hear a lot of those splits like talked about. Tyreek's been terrible in those games because Tua's been bad. Like Tyreek and Waddle have been bad in all these games too against McDermott. So if there ever was a week you thought you were going to get cute, this would probably be the one.
My only fear for Waddle is, like we talked about with Kyle Pitts and Drake London, is that like they've really made an effort to get Jonnu Smith the ball around their bye. Last 3 games, 25.8%, 31.8%, and 15.7% target shares. At least 6 targets in his last 3 games. So whereas last year the targets were condensed by Tyreek and Waddle, it really seems like they do get Jonnu involved now.
And you go back to last year, Jalen Waddle has 2 wide receiver 1 scoring weeks.
Yeah.
He was hurt for part of last year. Maybe he's just not that good. Is it possible he's not that good?
He's in the realm he plays with like a better wide receiver. It's hard for him to consistently get targets, and
that's a good point too. Yeah. Being next
to we've seen that, like, because I firmly believe Devontae Smith is an absolute baller, but he kind of runs into the same problem a lot because the Eagles don't throw a lot of passes. That, like, before last week, he had 5 targets like the 2 games before that. Like, you run into those spots.
Okay, let's knock out some tight ends. I believe, Rich, you are up first. What do we like on the week after National Tight End Week?
I mean, we do got to bring up Laporta just because we know the Lions that run a lot of plays, but he did have a season high 34% target share. He was targeting 35% of his routes in the first game that we had without Jameson Williams. Packers have been absolutely struggling against tight ends this entire season. So I do like Laporta if you have pay up. We touched on Evan Ingram. The one that I think Daigle was going to allude to that you have to just earmark. Someone brought this up in my chat on Sunday morning too. Is Mike Gesicki if T. Higgins doesn't play. He has now been targeted on 32% of his routes with T. Higgins off the field, 2.8 yards per route run. With T. Higgins on the field, he's been targeted on 10% of his routes with 0.8 yards per route run. It's like completely night and day. He's very cheap. So like if we don't get Higgins, he's in play. And then the only other guy I'll talk about is Zach Ertz just for a second, because Zach Ertz has actually shown a little bit of a ceiling lately. Like, he's not getting any yak. He's still dead last in yards after the catch for tight ends, which we need that Twitter account to stay in business.
How many is it? Like 10, 20?
What's
that? The official number? How many official yards is it? Do you know what it is offhand?
He's averaging 2.4 yards after catch per reception. So it's dead
more
last.
than I thought, to be honest.
But he's starting to get decent yardage now. Like he's actually, if you look at his yardage totals, he's getting like last week he had 77 yards. He should have almost had a touchdown last week too. And the Giants have really struggled against tight ends. When these teams played earlier in the year, he also had 62 yards. So he's another cheapie too, because if you're looking for the cheapies, like even on FanDuel, he's 5'2", I think.
Looking right now, 5'2". Now my page just locked up on me. I'm sorry. Well, we'll have to take your word for it. The same price as Calcaterra is 5'2". We're gonna try to make that happen once again over there.
You could. I mean, listen, tight ends, Jags.
That's what I'm told. What do you have, John? Tight ends. What do you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, Gesicki was definitely on there for all the reasons Rich mentioned. I touched on Taysom Hill because, again, we're just trying to dwindle down these Saints players to play. And now in his last two appearances, Taysom Hill has 13 touches on 44 snaps, 10 carries, 2 catches, and 1 pass last week. So, of course, he could get involved in siphon some red zone carries from Alvin Kamara. And then the other one we also touched on, Evan Ingram, just because we've seen without Christian Kirk, that's when Evan Ingram goes nuclear. Did not have a single end zone target or touchdown until Kirk got injured in week 13 last year. Did all of his damage after that. This year, no receiving touchdown. Kirk gets injured in the first half or in the third quarter, and then Ingram comes out and scores his first touchdown of the year in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, it just seems like it's all signs are pointing to Ingram being, once again, top 2, top 3 tight end.
I love that. Do we have any data as far as Philadelphia against tight ends that's meaningful, or nothing really?
Not really. I mean, they did give up the Gesicki at 7 for 73 against them last week. They are one of those teams, I think, that hasn't really played a good schedule of tight ends at all. Yeah, like here, like, the Gesicki last week, Theo Johnson the week before that. Then it was Njoku in his first game back. I think he only ran like 40% of the routes that game. K. Dotton, the Saints guys, Foster Moreau, Kyle Pitts, like nothing
Not
sensational.
exactly who's who. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of teams look like that against tight ends this year. That's why it was funny when because the Rams have been kind of touched up by tight ends, and you're like, oh, they faced like actually all the guys that are pretty good.
All right. We gave y'all an hour and a half of NFL DFS content here on a Wednesday night as more or less a first look. We're going to go ahead and pivot and talk about our movie in a second. I've seen Rob's going to pop on as well. Before we do that, though, Rich, tell the people where they can find your content and find you.
I mean, it's week 9, halfway through the season, guys. This is halfway
Nobody's counting
the season. And we made it. About to be November, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, sharpfootballanalysis.com. The primetime games are always free if you want to check out the worksheet over there. But if you have a player that you're thinking about, I wrote something about him.
John, where can the people find you?
Hopefully they can find my beard back in a few weeks. But beyond that, establishtheRun.com, Waiver Wire. If you want the free stuff, also, the podcast has our roundtable rest of season top 150 podcast that just came out lots of discussion on Deontay Johnson, Colts wide receivers with Joe Flacco, and other sell high, buy low options rest of the year.
I heard somebody say on Twitter, I don't remember who, but they said this might be the worst week for fab, just for free agents in general. Is it that
running backs? Lots of wide receivers. Running backs, I think the best one is honestly Braylon Allen, and he may not even get like 4 touches because if the rug gets pulled out one way on Sunday, it can obviously be pulled out the other direction the next game. Maybe also they limited Breece Hall because it was a short week. We just don't know. But we are in the time of the year where people are getting really hyped about stashes. I think the top 2 stashes are Braylon Allen and Blake Corum right now. So yeah, I talk about a lot of the stashes in the waiver wire because this week it's like not even worth picking up a single running back. Tyler Algier is the most viable flex option.
I thought Guarendo would be interesting, but if CMC's coming back, it's what do we do with that? Or
we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know. I suggested people with Jordan Mason also pick up Guarendo just because like Mason suffered the shoulder injury. Christian McCaffrey, we keep hearing week 10, but we don't know for sure. And Guarendo now, remember his 2 games where he's been asked to come off the bench. He should have had another touchdown in those games, but he kneeled in both situations. Like all that dude has done is showed us exactly what he did at the combine, and that's all for like 10 yards per carry per pop. Like you just get him the ball, he'll figure it out. He's the perfect one cut back in Shanahan's system. So yeah, we just don't know. So protect yourself.
Is San Fran back? The Niners are kind of buried, but I think they got a chance now, right? Can they CMC?
Division is jumbled up. They did lose 2 division games though, but I mean their roster's still good. They're not a bad team. They just they don't finish games. I mean, they even Latin Sunday they left the back door open.
Okay, let's go ahead and pivot to our movie. Rich, I believe you were the one that picked.
No, it's Daigle.
Certain. Daigle. Okay, I knew it was one of you two.
Real quick, you guys were hyping this Carolina New Orleans game. You don't even bring up Jatavian Sanders for tight end.
No, they split snaps last week.
Yeah, Tommy Tremble was back.
But Deontay Johnson being gone, they're starting to work in the new guys, as you guys alluded to.
Well, they should have just kept playing Jatavian Sanders then.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're going to end up doing going forward. I mean, how do you not?
We don't have a cheap tight end because Kate Otten is thankfully gone from our lives. So yeah, maybe
Fant or Gesicki, but
I can't do another Kate Otten week.
More than Sanders last week, which was a bummer.
Also, you guys brought up DeAndre Swift, and not to turn this into a best ball show, but I think DeAndre Swift was like one of the best lessons in best ball this year, where people were just so out on him because he didn't perform when they were drafting him in the 2nd round, so nobody wanted to draft him in the 8th round. And just getting that correction of where they should be going or a little past where they should be going and getting that value on players is so like.
Which was always weird though, because at one point last year, Swift, the front half of the year before he got hurt, was like the RB10, in scoring.
Right. So I think the Bears as a whole is a great, like if you zoom out.
I think a lot of the best ball bros have a lot of things to take away from this summer.
I agree.
Let's leave it at that. Yeah.
Just draft the players.
I don't think it was
hurt.
kind to the true best ball bros this year.
I mean, some of us are crushing. Some of us are crushing. So
I'm not.
I'll say.
Rich, I guess I know you don't look. Do you have a guess where you're at?
No, I do know. Like I said, Rashid Shaheed was my most high drafted player, but I actually had a pretty good summer. I'm not gonna at least through 9 weeks. I'm gonna knock on it, but because I was all over Jaden Daniels, so I was in on a lot of I was all over Joe Mixon. I was in on that whole pocket of dudes, the whole old running back guys that got pushed down. People were taking Xavier Worthy over
Henry.
Joe Mixon, and I was like, what the hell are we doing? Aaron Jones. No one wanted Aaron Jones. I was like,
Aaron Jones. I have so much Aaron Jones.
I am.
We got something cooking. I don't know though.
I have led pros versus Joes every week since week 3. I'm still in first place. So we're trying to make it wire to wire.
Right.
It's still a long season, but so far it's been an amazing year over at FFPC for me.
And I hope people learn too from the whole free agency thing too about these running backs. Obviously it was a unique thing, but this whole thing about guys changing teams, and it was literally a perfect storm of just the running back age thing. But these guys were all productive players still. And it wasn't like a guy was just dead and changing teams. They were all productive players. And it's literally been the fight back year for all these veteran running backs that changed teams. Saquon, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones. I'm missing someone else too.
Joe Mixon.
Mixon. All these dudes are smashing.
And it was a bad rookie year for running backs as well. And we
Yeah.
knew
Oh,
that
yeah,
going into the season, and people still elevate them when they shouldn't be in relation to like best ball rankings and stuff like that. So it was a hell of a year. My hard fade on CMC and Tyreek Hill is making me look great at the moment. That could blow up in my face anytime now, though.
Yeah. Second half of the season may not be kind to that.
We'll see.
Rob, you listened to the entire show. Do you have any other takes as far as week 9? If you dug in, I know you come out here and talk about movies and such, but if you had a take, do you have one take for the people or one take for us? Do you have one?
I think the Eagles are always just undervalued, like the pass catchers every single week in terms of people rostering them. So I'm going to be looking at AJ Brown this week and trying to build through him. That is something I'm doing. Other than I haven't dove in too hard. I might go back to Chicago this week too.
Really? Oh, the Bears, not you're visiting. I was like, why didn't you call me?
I'm coming, Dave.
He's outside. He's got a Fanta waiting for you.
No,
like,
I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm sleeping for the next week. It has been a hell of an October, personally.
Only one Fanta, though. All right, let's go ahead.
It's your Christmas, man.
It is my Christmas.
Yeah, you must be geeked up, actually. Yeah, with the Halloween on layaway in a couple days. We are talking about Blade, but this is officially your warning. We're not talking any more football. Hribar will mention a tight end from 20 years ago, but that's not really, relevant to the conversation.
And a wrestler
Blade
will come up.
and a wrestler will be named later on in the show as well. Blade came out in 1998, if you guys are not aware. R rating, horror, action, fantasy, adventure. The summary, according to Rotten Tomatoes, half mortal, half immortal, is out to avenge his mother's death and rid the world of vampires. The modern-day technologically advanced vampires he is going after are in search of a special blood needed to summon an evil god who plays a key role in their plan to execute the human race. I believe I was the only one to watch this for the first time. Is that, you guys confirm this? Yes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm my 10th time watching this movie.
I'm not a vampire guy. It's not really my wheelhouse. I remember when it came out. I didn't see Twilight. It's just not really my genre.
Come on, man.
Bro.
These are
I'm just
not
saying vampires
movies.
is a blanket thing. It's not really.
It's not a blanket thing. It is not a blanket.
I did see
thing.
that Swedish vampire movie with the kid.
Oh, that is a phenomenal movie.
What was it? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? You either know or you don't.
I don't.
With that definition, they
Let
remade
the
it in America too.
Let the right one in.
There you go. Look at you.
If you
You're all over
honestly,
us.
if you watch Let the Right One In, it is a phenomenal movie. And watch the original version.
Yes,
The American one is good too, but watch the original version. It's actually a really good movie. It's not just. I mean, Dean, you can probably vouch for it.
It's not even my wheelhouse, and I thought it was a pretty good movie. And I can't remember why I even fell into it, but every once in a while, it's like, okay, I guess I'll fire this up and give it a shot. But it was my first time. Of course, I'm aware of Blade. I've seen many images. I think of Wesley Snipes first, like Major League. I think of him as White Man Can't Jump. Always Been on Black. Passenger 57. That's kind of where I go. Demolition Man, yes.
Yeah.
When Taco Bell took over the world.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that in forever. I wonder how that aged. But do you guys want my opinion? Because
keep going, Dean. Keep cooking.
Again, not really my wheelhouse. It reminded me of some other things, and I don't think it was intentional because I feel like it came out like right before Matrix, but it felt kind of Matrixy in some aspects. And again, I think they came out at a similar time. It might have came out right before.
I think it was Matrix. A year before.
Yeah, 1998. The CGI was a little bit dated. I loved seeing Donald Logue. I love Donald Logue. He's one of my favorite that guys. If he's that guy, he's one of my favorite that guys. He's not too big to be a that guy. The Tao of Steve is a fun Donald Logue movie if you've never seen that before. I love the opening sequence. The opening sequence, as far as like world building, you knew exactly what world you were in within like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to certainly set the stage for the rest of this movie. And another thing that kind of reminded me of our movie was there was that scene where Stephen Dorff, which by the way, Stephen Dorff is like the main villain. Like, really? Stephen Dorff? He doesn't seem like I guess he's kind of vampire-esque, but not a very intimidating guy. I don't really think of him that way. But okay, he's the main guy. But there was that scene that reminded me of Kill Bill, where you remember that she was talking about if anybody questions, her being half American, half Japanese. Very similar scene he had. I thought he was going to cut somebody's head off, but he didn't. But I'm like, oh, is this where Kill Bill got it from? They didn't, but maybe it was kind of sort of somewhat similar. because he's not a pure breed. But yeah, those are my initial takeaway. It kind of fell apart. Like the actual story, it didn't really. The end was kind of whatever. It was a fun watch though. I had a good time with it. It's again not my genre. I want to hear you guys out. Tell me what I missed. If there's something amazing, fun. I don't feel like it's probably better on the big screen. Like definitely as opposed to like watching on an Amazon Prime or whatever. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good for what it was. The Blade character is badass. Like Snipes was awesome. Like that's just a cool character.
I forgot how much I missed like that era, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Well,
who else? What else do you think of him outside of when you think of Snipes? So what's the first thing you picture?
Definitely Major League. I mean, but
Major League.
I mean, there's so many, dude. I remember I was born in the early '80s, so like this was like
Cleveland
this group of dudes like Snipes, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Bruce. Like these were like the movies that were popular in the theater. Like me growing up, right? Like that action movie. So like I grew up like with all that. So like, I mean, there was just so many of those movies in the '90s that would just go straight to Netflix, like Money Train, like Money Train would just go straight to Netflix now, right? Like those movies were all amazing. Like Boiling Point, U.S. Marshals, like those movies, like those are all movies that were just like that era of Wesley Snipes, not Tu Wong Fu, Julie Newmar, Wesley Snipes, but like
Patrick Swayze.
So I mean, this type of movie just takes me back always, right? Like I definitely knew going into this because I haven't seen this movie in a while that the CGI was going to be questionable because it was in that era where like Mortal Kombat had come out. I think like a year before this too. Like it was in that peak thing where it's like you throw some techno music behind some shit, you do some computer video game graphics. And like, I actually did laugh out loud when Steven Dorff got cut in half and his blood congealed back together. Actually, that part, like, I did laugh. But I do love just this style of movie, man. And I think it's just because that was the genre movie I grew up with. Like, I love a badass protagonist just beating on some henchmen all in the same uniform and just seeing like a clan of vampires have a group of regular dudes and their like motif was just to wear like black beanies and sunglasses and just like Wesley Snipes just cooking these dudes. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like that, I just love shit like that.
I believe we heard Prodigy, Firestarter, if I'm not mistaken, like in the first, one of the first fight scenes. That definitely that certainly puts you at a certain time. If you were there, you know it.
Yeah.
Daigle, what do you got as far as Blade?
It was everything I remember, just a badass superhero action movie where the villains are truly evil, and even Wesley Snipes has some feelings, has a little emotions as a good superhero does, like Batman, Superman, or whatnot. So I just think it's kind of the cliche, but very important that it's a black superhero movie. So yeah, it was just as good as I remember.
Rob?
It's a super important movie in the sense that if you don't have this, for multiple reasons, if you don't have this movie,
true,
the Marvel universe probably never gets launched if it's not as successful as it is, because this is technically the first like real Marvel movie to come out that allowed the X-Men and Spider-Man movie to be made. If this bombed, you wouldn't have got those.
Yeah, this
movies.
Came out before X-Men.
Yeah. So this bombs, you don't get those movies probably. Or if you do, it's later and who knows what happens. You don't get your iconic characters. Wesley Snipes as Blade. There are some people that play a role and they are just that role. Wesley Snipes is Blade in the Marvel universe. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. If you go to other characters, the Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter. Like you just can't see other people playing these particular characters. I think it's a little bit of a problem for Marvel that they actually brought him back for the newest Deadpool movie. Spoiler, everyone knows already. But to show him as Blade again is a big problem, I think, because that movie's just never going to get made at this point because everyone's just going to want Wesley Snipes. But this was like a fusion. This was the 90s action movies, right? Starting to go into the turn of the century. So you see that fusion of the 90s action movies showing what they're going to become with the Matrix, the Marvel universe, and everything like that. So sort of like a handshake where you're getting that crossing point. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a great action movie. The opening scene is bonkers. Chris Christopherson as Whistler is phenomenal. I love Chris Christopherson in this series. He's so
I wasn't
good.
ready for that, by the way, because it just happened in real life, and then
That's right. Yeah, I was thinking about that during the movie, but man,
yeah, he was great in this movie. I thought the visuals for the CGI is whatever. I always remember feeling like watching this movie with some of the costume and makeup stuff, it felt slightly dated even when it came out. That was a little bit of a problem for me back then. And the only other thing that I really didn't like is the stuff with his mother. It just felt so like cliche, like just such a cliche vampire-esque thing that they did in this, which is funny because I had to review another vampire movie last night, which was full of cliches, but it was really good. The new Salem's Lot that just came out on Max, the remake there was pretty good. But it's full of cliches, but they did them well. And I don't know, I just didn't like that. And I like Steven Dorff as the bad guy in this movie. I thought he pulled it off. I don't think you need a hulking brute.
The fight scenes too, like a little bit.
Well, I mean,
the fight scenes of Steven Dorff.
Well,
badass Wesley Snipes and Steven Dorff.
Yeah, well, because he's supposed to be this all-powerful vampire, but vampires aren't supposed to be these hulking brutes. They are finesse. A vampire is a finesse villain more so than, your Frankenstein is your brute. Your Wolfman is your brute. Your vampires are more cunning, even though they have like the super strength or whatever. They don't need to be all jacked up and stuff. And we saw that take a turn in Blade Trinity, which is a whole nother ball game.
That's terrible.
Which
right?
I think
Isn't
is the first movie to ever have the Marvel thing in front of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was not good, Dean, but it was like a guilty pleasure movie.
That's the movie where like it was supposed to be like there's supposed to be like there's a bunch of stories about like what happened on that movie. Like Patton Oswalt's talked about it. Like like a bunch of
He's
stuff
involved in the Blade world, Patton Oswalt?
Yeah, and then and then that was what supposedly was the rift and why it was such a big deal that Wesley Snipes came back for Deadpool. Was that him and Ryan Reynolds had like a big thing on the set of that movie.
Yeah.
So was there like inside jokes in the new Deadpool? I'm assuming there was inside jokes about that.
Buddy, that's all the movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've seen.
Did you know Deadpool knows he is in a movie, Dean?
No, I enjoy the Deadpool actually. I know again, not necessarily my wheelhouse, but I do enjoy it. By the way, you mentioned, Rob, is this official that the Mahershala Ali, that Blade's not going to be happening? I saw it was in production.
They kicked it off the thing, but
it's been moved
it's been a disaster. The whole production of it's been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because people want Wesley Snipes to star in it, or
no, because it's been a mess. Like supposedly like Mahershala hated the original script and they were going to rewrite it, and then the dude that was going to rewrite it like was upset, not happy with it, like the Mahershala's like influence, and like it hasn't even gotten off the ground. Like it's
lost directors as well. Like it is just an absolute train wreck behind the scenes.
To me, that's a sign to just not do it, but. Will Feige push it through? He's pushed other shit through. So
he seems like a good predecessor, though. Like he seems like a good, in theory, but I guess maybe it's not working out for whatever reason.
They should get the director of Tiptoes to step in.
Bring him back. He's due. He's waited too long. Bring him back.
But you've also shown Snipes as Blade again, and now people are just going to want that. And
he's 62 though.
It doesn't matter, man. Like he looked good in the latest one. People are gonna want an old Blade at this point because Wesley Snipes still kicks ass. So you've made, I think, as much as I love seeing it, it was a mistake because now you've opened the door for that. Whoever, even if Ali, doesn't end up becoming Blade and they do it with somebody else, it was already going to be a comparison, but it's going to be even more now because it's been so recent that he's played the character again. So it's like it's a tough spot for them to be in, I think.
To put this like in wrestling terms, so I'm sure we'll talk about wrestling later on. You get that nostalgia pop, right? Like the wrestler you haven't seen like in 5 or 10 years or so, or 20 years, like they come out from the Royal Rumble and you get excited for it. But like, yeah, you got to dump them out for a couple minutes because then at some point, like I don't know, the Road Warrior can't do anything. I'm just trying to think of a random dude that, and at some point, they kind of lost their luster. Like, could 62-year-old Snipes, could he carry the lead? Can he be the lead guy? Or is like we love seeing him like in a nostalgia role? That's kind of. Or
you get CM Punk that comes back after 7, 8, 9 years of not wrestling and is still one of the biggest stars in the company and one of the best guys that can tell stories.
He's still 62.
No, still runs on the same running trail I do in Chicago too. I notice him sometimes. Never reach out, but he wears a hoodie. But like I know the tattoos, like I know what he looks like, so I just run by him.
Maybe he's the guy leaving out the Fanta. You never know. Maybe that's the
He's a Pepsi guy. He has a big Pepsi tattoo. Yeah.
All right. So is there anything else we should say as far? Does this remind you of any other movies, Daigle? I think it's just kind of tricky because you might lose.
The best time of movies is what it reminds me of.
Yeah. What's the one?
I mean, 90s action movies were because they were the range of 90s movies that genre, because they could delve into like comedy too. Like you had Men in Black and Rush Hour and those that were like half, action movies still too. And then like you kind of had that bleed in too, where you like had serious movies, and then you had stuff like like Cliffhanger and shit like that. Like, man, I'm just thinking of so many movies like from that era that were so good. Like fucking Face Off that movie should not be good at all. It's so fun.
It's ridiculous.
It's preposterous. Best.
Imagine pitching that movie.
Desperado with Antonio Banderas was like, that was my shit in the 90s.
That was great, man. I love Desperado.
Oh my God. Desperado was like, when he do just like a guitar with like a rocket launcher in it, like, oh my God. Like this
just standing in the street, not covering at all.
It's amazing. This is the stuff I want, man. Like,
the Rock with Sean Connery. Yes,
Con
absolutely.
Air,
Con Air. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe just because I was marking, like that was me going.
No, those movies kick ass. Those movies kick ass.
Just a ton of fun, man. Just movies that were there to have fun. Like,
I visited Nicolas Cage's grave recently.
Oh,
did you know he already has his grave built?
Not.
I believe it.
He has a big pyramid grave built in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 in New Orleans. So he's already built it. It's up
where this movie was, right? That's where Blade is from, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Is there like a side? Like, is it something that's advertised, or you just gotta know where it's at?
It's pointed out, like, because you can't go in that cemetery without going on a tour because of it gets vandalized too much. Not his grave specifically, it's other people's graves because of voodoo stuff. So they have to lock down that cemetery. So when you go through the tour, they do point out his grave and like show it. But it's just a big ass white pyramid in the middle of this old graveyard. It's awesome.
New Orleans is famous for that because they have a lot of above ground because they're at above sea level, right? Isn't a lot of people are buried above ground in New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I won't get too deep into this, but I didn't know this until I went to that cemetery. They bury them above ground in these tombs, and basically what happens is when they put them into these graves, these tombs, the bodies cook for a year. They're not allowed to open them for a year because basically they're doing like a slow cooking, and the ashes kind of slide to the corner of the grave after 365 days. So if it's a family plot and one of your loved ones dies 6 months later, you have to put that body on ice for 6 months until the process is done for the one that died before. So it's crazy.
This is why you take the tour for fun facts like that. Yeah. All right. The second one's supposedly good, right? Blade 2 is supposedly good. The third one's a disaster. Yeah. That's my understanding.
If you didn't like the CGI in this one, no.
Oh, CGI is so bad in the second one.
In the second one, because it comes out after The Matrix. And remember The Matrix, they're like one thing that doesn't stand up when you go back to it is CGI has never worked when you do full human bodies and fight scenes. And Blade 2 has a couple CGI fight scenes where like the people are CGI, and it just never has worked. It's one thing that they've never been able to get right.
Right. Yeah, it was bad then.
But the cast, you would love the cast in the second one, Dean. It's a Guillermo del Toro movie too.
Guillermo del Toro. Let's see who's
Ron
the cast
Perlman's
for?
In it. Donnie Yen, right? Is in it?
Wait, Chris Christopherson's back. Spoiler
Dean,
alert.
man, you got it. Spoiler. Spoiler.
It was off screen, but I thought that. Oh, and Norman Reedus from Walking Dead is also in there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Real
Is
good
he
cast.
I'm guessing he's the villain. I don't know, but I'm guessing he's the villain. But maybe not.
You gotta
watch it.
You gotta pick it. You gotta pick it for this week.
Do we want to keep watching Blade? Is that what we're doing?
No. We can do something.
Pressure's on.
I think though after watching this, I am gonna watch the other two probably this weekend.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys want to watch it, I mean, I'm fine.
No. You won the tournament.
You won, Dean. You always.
Jameis, by the way, I think Jameis was my quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. Nobody else. Nobody else said Tillman as well.
It seems so obvious. Jameis to Tillman. It seemed too easy.
Have some fun with. Yeah, I figure I've been throwing in like more fun lineups. I think Rich talked to me about this. Like, stop playing like your chalk nonsense.
No, that's meant for fun times.
Yeah. So I thought Jameis, although Jameis was like 16% owned in single entry stuff, which I couldn't believe. So maybe it was pumped up all over the place and I wasn't aware of it. But I thought he was kind of sort of somewhat sneaky in single entry. But obviously he got there. Okay, let's go ahead and put a score on it, boys. Let's talk about IMDb first. Rich, IMDb 1 through 10. What is Blade's score?
6.8.
Rob?
7-8.
Ooh, that's a big score. John?
Middling, 7-1.
Nailed it. You just won both Showcase Showdowns. It is 7-1. Congratulations.
I was going to say 7 before Rich guessed, so I stuck with my guns.
All right. Let's go with Rotten Tomatoes. I want 2 scores.
Oh, this is going to be fun because I think this is going to be a huge difference between critics and the audience.
But I feel like this is one the critics that went back and reviewed this probably had already seen it. So, and then there's probably like a new wave of critics that went back and just like, this movie doesn't work for them. So maybe, but I assume like a lot of people that reviewed it are like, shit, I can't wait to get my Blade review in because I didn't get to review it then.
It was fresh in 98, right? I'm trying to think if there was anything else. There was really nothing else like it, I don't think, when it came out. Like,
no.
It's very.
What was the box office? This movie had to do well, right? I can't remember, but I remember this being a big movie. I remember this being a big movie at the time.
It did. I mean, it did well enough to launch the Marvel franchise.
I remember this movie coming out. I remember it being huge, like pretty big.
I would guess at least over 100 million. Let's see. I'm pulling it up on the fly here.
But hitting 100 back then was kind of tough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like maybe 70, 80.
70 mil. Blade 2, 82 million. Blade Trinity, 52 mil. Came out the latest.
There was an era where 100 million meant something, and like we were way past that.
Yes.
Yeah, and the budget for this movie was probably like minuscule, so the return on investment on it was probably insane.
Okay, let me see if I can get the budget as well as we fire up the scores. John, you're going to go first now as far as Rotten Tomatoes. Give me both the critics, percentage-wise, and the viewers, the regular people, the everyday.
I think viewers are higher, so let's go 77%. And critics, let's do 54.
Okay, Rob.
90 for viewers.
Oh.
61 for critics.
Rich.
I'm thinking 60-80. 60% critics, 80% audience.
You just overshot both. 58 for the critics, 78 for the audience. So you're right there. But like, yeah, as Rob was pointing out, definitely more of a. The critics were fine with it. You know, it's got a little bit split. 113 reviewers, over 250,000 ratings from allegedly people. Wow. 78%.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big number. Okay. So I had the movies I had on my list. I
got it at a 4 out of 5, by the way, for my score.
Oh yeah, we got to put a score in it. Let's put a score in it. My apologies. Go ahead, Rob.
4 out of 5.
Yeah, spoiler. 4 out of 5. Daigle, do you have a wrestler for us? What are the Road Warriors, or I don't know.
This wrestler is also returned to the Royal Rumble and got a big pop because everyone remembers him leading a trio in the 90s, late 90s, with Edge and Christian, who everyone knows now.
Yeah.
Okay. So instead, though, the leader of that group, the Brood Dean, was known as Gangrel. And so this movie is rated as a Gangrel.
Perfect. That works out perfectly. There you go. Rob, you usually like to be critical of Daigle's wrestlers.
I'm never critical. I'm never critical. As long as he didn't say Kevin Thorne, the other vampire gimmick that came out in the mid-2000s.
He's never critical. He just gets excited to talk about it as well.
Understood. And Rich, we need a tight end. What tight end is Blade?
Also my initial idea was, since it was Blade, to do Shannon Sharp, but I think Shannon Sharp was too good. Like, as much as I like this movie, Shannon Sharp, arguably one of the best tight ends of all time, I felt like it was too lofty. So I'm going to go with Delaney Daywalker for the comp here.
That's a good one.
That feels like a big step down.
Yeah, I feel like that's too far down.
Delaney Walker was a lot better than you guys think.
Delaney Walker was a beast.
He was
Hold
a
on a second.
7 out of 10 tight end. Like this is
No Shannon Sharp.
right. But I said Shannon Sharp was too good. I just wanted to make I felt like I was forcing the Blade Sharp thing.
I get it. It was clever. He had 1,000-yard season. He had 3 other seasons where he had at least 800 yards. So, okay. All right. It was weird. He was a late bloomer. They say it's tight end's the toughest position.
Well, he did behind Vernon Davis all those years.
That's right. Yeah, and then he got loose in Tennessee.
He was awesome with the 49ers. Though, like Kaepernick would hook that dude up, but he played behind Big Vern.
Most touchdowns he had for San Fran was 3 his last couple of years there. But yeah, he was best when he went to Tennessee.
Yeah,
6 touchdowns, 4, 6, 7.
He was a college wide receiver too.
All right, Titans Delaney Walker. I get it.
Titans Delaney Walker for sure.
Hold on a second. Who just said he was a college wide receiver? Do you know what college he went to? This was really impressive.
Yeah, it's a really obscure school. Man, if you, I don't know off the top of it. It's a really obscure school. I think they've had like 3 pros. I used to know it. I'm mad that I don't know it. It's something state, right? Like something like Kennesaw State or something.
There's like a direction. There's a direction. They're not necessarily north or south, but there's a direction or a kind of a specific spot, and then a state, and then a state.
He was a really small school dude because the 49ers had an MO of drafting these really small, the TO from Tennessee Chattanooga. Like they took shots and like all of these like small school dudes, and Delaney Walker was when he's actually a wide receiver. But what was it?
Central Missouri State.
That's impressive.
I mean, I'm just impressed you were close.
That's a prison, right?
I don't know. I was just
the California Penal League.
Yeah. Adam Sandler was the quarterback in that league. Yeah.
I also really regret all day. I told myself when we were going to break down plays that I was going to bring up like playing Jalen Coker was trying to ice skate uphill, and I'm really mad that I didn't work it in.
Missed out.
Really mad.
Wow, blew it.
I'm trying to see.
What an line! So, what an awesome line to end the movie on.
It's such a great line. And he was like, from what I read, he was adamant about putting that line in the movie.
As he should have been.
In this movie also reminded me how much I love swearing in action movies.
Yeah.
It's important. The R really matters. Like I like that, and I'm give me a hard R too. Like I want like the give me as many F-bombs as you can throw in there. PG-13. The kids can watch it on TNT if we really have to. But that's kind of where I'm at. But
I love swearing.
University of Central. the University of Central Missouri. Let's see, the Mules and the Jennies.
Of course.
Is it still a college?
They lost the state. The University of Central Missouri athletic teams are known as the Mules and the Jennies. Okay, but that's not the state. Okay, I was trying to say there's a nickname. I'm just telling you this is what Google's telling me. Just Googling it here on the fly.
What's a Jenny?
I don't know.
What's a Jenny? Isn't that a female?
Well,
mule?
That's a mascot?
I don't know.
I know what a Joey is. Like, what's a Jenny?
Joey's a kangaroo, right? A baby kangaroo, I think. But I'm not sure. I'm getting women named Jenny now come up in the Google, so I'm just kind of getting
your algorithm is done.
Jenny Garth just popped up for no particular reason. Shout out to Beverly Hills 90210. All right, let's go ahead and pick a movie and get out of here. Going to so the ones I had still on my list, I keep mentioning this one is Challengers, which of course we always talk about. It is the tennis movie that's on Amazon Prime. Zendaya.
Donkey. Sorry.
Yeah. I was say I was looking it up too. I was obsessed with what a Jitty was. Yeah.
I still have not seen Wolves, the Clooney Pitt movie, but I can't believe nobody's talked about it, which makes me think it's probably bad. It's a movie on Apple. It sounds like it could be good, but like I don't like the fact that like it has like no buzz, and usually they're really good together.
It's not called Wolves. Look, I'm really just triggered that it's not called Wolves.
That's fair. That's fair. And then I have Blue Ruin on my list, which, if you remember earlier in the season, I picked Rebel Ridge. And the reason why I picked Rebel Ridge is because I really liked the director who did Blue Ruin. And we didn't really love Rebel Ridge. That it was underwhelming, I think. But the reason why I was excited about Rebel Ridge was because of Blue Ruin. And then we can watch Blade 2. So I'm open to any of these 4. I'm willing to hear you out. But And producer Steve saying, did I sound like I said wolves? It's a hard word. It's wolves. Wolves.
It's wolves,
right?
Isn't the movie called Wolves?
Wolves.
Yeah,
Wolves.
WLF.
Peyton Manning or Peyton Manning?
What is the Leonardo DiCaprio movie about the stock market? What is that called?
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah,
The Wolf of Wall Street.
The Wolf of Wall Street.
It's a tricky word. Is that just me, or does there other people have issues with that? So I'm willing to hear y'all out. That's my list. We can watch Blade 2. Challengers. What do you got?
I've been wanting to watch the Blue. Well, what is it?
Blue Ruin. Oh, do you like a vengeance story? Redemption. Revenge.
Revenge.
You like
I'm open to everything. Yeah. 179 yards. Revenge. That kind of, I'm open. Ever since you mentioned it, because I do keep in mind like the movies y'all just throw out, and sometimes on the weekend I'll just go back, I'll just watch them, I'll just put them out there. Like I caught up on Penguin this weekend. I watched every episode. It's incredible, by the way.
I'm only a couple episodes in, but I'm loving it. I think it's
such an easy show to cruise through. But yeah, you mentioned that Blue one previously, and I haven't watched it yet, so I think I'd be interested in that.
Anybody have any objections to Blue Ruin?
I didn't. It's not my choice.
As long as it's better than the other movie we had to watch from this director.
I like it, and I'll be thrilled to watch it again. And I think it's better than Rebel Ridge, but that's yet to be determined. We were on for 2 hours and change. Everybody else gave out their plugs. Rob, you didn't tell the people. Do you want to tell the people where they can find you? At this
also,
point?
Rob, tell people like one last gasp of a Halloween movies they can watch. Since you tried,
what was the vampire one again?
You tried your damnedest, but you did not win the contest. So you got to give people movies anyway.
Let the right one in.
Let the right one in. If you want an actually like really, really good movie, Let the Right One In is a phenomenal. I think it's a phenomenal movie.
I've been watching. Is it Swedish, Rob? What's the word? It's somewhere in Scandinavia. I think it's Swedish. The original.
It's version. Swedish, but it's not a hard watch. It's an easy watch. Like in terms of like the language stuff, it's just really good. I think it's just a really, really good movie. If you want like a vampire movie to watch for the kids, the new Salem's Lot is fine. If you are looking to watch me do a movie review, we're going to review the Rob Zombie Halloween movie live tomorrow night on the Hometown Ghost Stories channel. So if you're looking for that, you can watch along and we'll be reviewing that. So just go to YouTube, type in Hometown Ghost Stories, and we'll be doing that live movie review tomorrow night at 9. We haven't even announced it yet, but there you go. Exclusive.
The remake, by the way, of Let the Right One In is called Let Me In, starring Chloe Grace Moretz and Richard Jenkins.
Also good. It's a good remake, but it's almost like a shot-for-shot remake.
Mm-hmm.
So just watch the original.
All right. Let's get out of here. Go ahead and win something on week 9 for John, for Rob, for producer Steve, for Rich, for Mark Walton.
Listen, we're still here, everyone, too. A lot of people didn't think we were still around. We're still here.
We are still doing our thing. We're still doing our thing.
We're here for a season high 2.5 hour show. Yeah.
Which, by the way, the under was looking good from the start, but then the second they had us in the first half, but not the second.
I thought we were hitting the under too.
Yeah, you got to bet against us.
All right,
over 2 hours every week.
Appreciate y'all listening. We're out of here. Holler.